Second is with our hotel partners. I think these are all hotels who run hotels which are worth millions of dollars, right? They are very valuable properties, and they in some way think that I'm trusting OYO and the people behind it, that they will take care of my property and make sure that the value accretion is high. I have seen that वहाँ पे अगर आप constantly अगर लोगों से बात कर रहे हैं और logical conversation कर सकते हैं, that people can respect. And third, if you're willing to listen, be a good listener along with being a good speaker, I have seen that people sort of over time respect you a lot more. Like, this room is filled with, great leaders. I hope I'm bringing some value to the room, so I'm able to sort of hopefully communicate something that makes sense. The last but not the least, and this is probably the most important, I think passion और एक जो sense of belief है ना, बड़ा contagious है. अगर आपके अंदर वो passion और belief है ना, like people can see it, इतना authentic होता है कि you can't make it up. अगर आप में passion नहीं है तो सामने वाले लोग देख सकते हैं, अगर आप में नहीं है वो भी देख सकते हैं, अगर है वो भी देख सकते हैं. So I think I hope that I try to sort of make my passion known.
You can add one more thing to the list. You're a very inspiring speaker. You can say that the next time. When somebody asks you what do you bring to the table, this is also something. But you spoke of passion just now. Firstly, how important is passion as far as, making a startup successful? And is passion something that is inborn only, or is it something that can also be cultivated?
देखिए, first off, I think passion किसी भी चीज़ के लिए, anything that is out of normal करने के लिए बहुत ज़रूरी है. क्योंकि in my view, how I define passion is something that keeps you going when every logical reason stops you from doing the same thing, right? And I'll give you an example. In the 9.5-year journey I have had, there have been at least 5 times जहाँ पे लोगों ने कहा है कि आपकी कंपनी invincible है. And there is at least 3 times जहाँ पे लोगों ने हमारी obituaries लिखी कि OYO is not going to see the sunlight next month, right? दोनों ही समय में it's easy to get carried away, right? But अगर आप में वो innate belief है कि जो मैं काम कर रहा हूँ मुझे उसके लिए प्यार है, rather than the outcome, I think passion keeps you going, right? In COVID, when hotel industry's revenues fell by 70-80% overnight, and people sort of said, "Pakka ab to OYO gayi," and it was like a fantastic beer conversation if people are able to catch up at all together in person for a discussion, right? I think it just kept us going. We had this innate belief that we will make this work. But that said, passion को balance करना चाहिए with what you are, like I think hard work or training and getting better at your art, उसका कोई compromise नहीं है. Sometimes people get very passionate and probably don't try to be as good at the art or their work. I think that is very, very crucial. There is no compromise. Like if there is a choice between passionate and hard work for the art, I will choose hard work for the art. Like that probably is more important than passion, because passion in itself is cheap. But passion combined with the devotion, dedication and desire is valuable. You can keep that
hard work going only if you have the passion. It's like one works with the other. Life is about balance, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. But देखिए, I will just call out. A lot of times I see that entrepreneurship ना हम लोग सब impact के लिए शुरू करते हैं. छोटे जगह से आए हैं, बड़ा काम करना चाहते हैं. लोगों को I want to see millions of people impacted. उसके लिए हमारा क्या difference create कर सकते हैं? But when a lot of external communication is about just the money, saying unicorn बन गए, $1 billion आ गए, आपका value इतना हो गया, I think कई बार passion becomes focused on wealth, or money, or visibility of yourself. That I think I encourage people to remember that entrepreneurship is unfortunately not the shortcut to become a billionaire. इसमें बहुत मेहनत का काम होता है. You have to basically go through those sleepless nights. You have to go through those days, like within a day, between feeling that I'm doing everything right to sometimes feeling that I probably got everything wrong. Why is the world sort of not appreciating what I do, to saying that why is the world over appreciating what I have done? I think those swings you have to almost go through every day and be at balance at all times, because you are responsible for your customers, partners, shareholders and so on. So I just feel like जब तक passion mission oriented या purpose oriented है, तब it just, I think it sort of allows you to do things which feel inhumanly impossible.
You know, I heard a clip somewhere of yours where you said impact before financial gains, right? That is what's very important. But when does profitability start coming into the picture? When do profitability goals start coming into the picture as far as startups are concerned?
ये बहुत अच्छा सवाल है. I always think that it's very important to differentiate between individual financial gains and enterprise financial gains, which is the company. I think company's profitability there is absolutely no compromise for, because if you want to make the difference, अगर आज हम लोग 20 मिलियन या 50 मिलियन लोगों को इम्पैक्ट करें, उसे 100 मिलियन करना है, we have to make sure that you're financially sustainable and attractive in order to fund that opportunities in the future. Otherwise, the law of nature is if you're not financially sustainable, there is no free money forever. There is only some early investment you can receive for building your enterprise, but उसके बाद में आपको अपने दो पैरों में खड़ा होना पड़ेगा in all ways of meaning that it stands for. So our company, for instance, when we started initially, the small business used to generate a bottom line. Then we started investing in our technology and brand and did have losses for a long period of time. But I'm happy to report that FY23 that we just finished was our first EBITDA positive year. We generated around 33 million in EBITDA. And I'm not saying this, but some of the rating agencies who view our company project anywhere between $55 to $80 million in this year coming up. So I hope we can deliver better than what they're suggesting.
I feel privileged sharing the stage with him. You should feel privileged. You're in the same room as him, honestly. So what in your opinion are the important factors that contribute to a startup becoming a unicorn?
I think first off, I must say that I feel privileged that I get this opportunity. I must tell you that मुझे लगता है gratitude एक बहुत important चीज़ है जो लोग भूल जाते हैं. I think मेरे अंदर बहुत significant thankfulness है कि आप लोगों का इतना प्यार मिलता है, इतना प्रोत्साहन और motivation मिलता है कि आप और आगे बढ़ें. और frankly कभी-कभी थोड़ी बहुत अगर भूल चूक गलती होती है तो उसमें अच्छा feedback भी मिलता है. और मैं उसे बहुत दिल से जो भी हमारा क्रिटिसिज्म होता है उसे सुनता हूँ और उसमें ऑफ कोर्स सिग्नल और नॉइस को डिवाइड करके सिग्नल से कैसे हम बेहतर हों उस पर ध्यान देता हूँ. आई थिंक व्हाट अलाउज अ स्टार्टअप टू बी अ यूनिकॉर्न, इट्स अ गुड क्वेश्चन. सबसे पहला तो मेरा मानना ये है कि यूनिकॉर्न और सक्सेस में सेम लाइन में नहीं मानता. मेरे हिसाब से आप यूनिकॉर्न हो सकते हैं बट दैट प्रोबेबली इज नॉट द ओनली डेफिनेशन ऑफ सक्सेस. मेरे हिसाब से मैंने इम्पैक्ट आज शायद कई बार बात किया. आई थिंक इम्पैक्ट एंड मेकिंग अ डिफरेंस. मैं आपको बताता हूँ इतनी खुशी होती है मुझे जब भी मैं ड्राइव करता हूँ दिल्ली से जयपुर, चंडीगढ़ और इतने सारे ओयोस देखता हूँ, मुझे देख के बड़ी खुशी होती है. और हमारे कॉलीग्स हो गए, हम वो उसको पॉइंट करके कहते हैं कि इन होटल ओनर के पास पहले उनकी कमाई साल की 20 लाख होती थी, अभी 60 लाख होती है. वो हमने उस पर कॉन्ट्रीब्यूट किया, कुछ थोड़ा बहुत कॉन्ट्रीब्यूट किया. आई थिंक दैट फीलिंग इज अनपैरेलल्ड, नॉट जस्ट फॉर मी, हर एंटरप्रेन्योर के लिए. जो भी आप छोटा भी बिजनेस चला रहे हैं तो मेरे हिसाब से वो सबसे पहला है कि आप एंटरप्रेन्योरियल इम्पैक्ट की तरफ ध्यान दें. दूसरा, आप इंश्योर करें कि उस सक्सेस के लिए इंश्योर करिए कि बियॉन्ड बिल्डिंग अ ग्रेट प्रोडक्ट आप अच्छे टीम पे बहुत ध्यान दें. आई थिंक माय लीडरशिप इज ऑलमोस्ट 10 people and their average tenure in the company is 8 years and the company is 10 years old. So almost all the people have been with me for the entire period and I hope will remain for
today's day and age. That's long. That's serious loyalty.
No, and I hope that we all, retire together. I mean, not together because we have some difference in age, but I think we get to work for as long as we can together. I think एक मेरा आखिरी सुझाव होता है, which is that be perseverant. मैंने देखा है कि people give up too early, in a good or a bad way. Good way because people feel that बहुत मेहनत कर ली, and there is that moment you feel like, right? But I feel किसी entrepreneur के लिए जिसके लिए impact इतना important है, if they're not coming with a sense of purpose in the morning next day, I think they're probably going to go back thinking that, in a few months that I'm probably not doing something and they would like to start something new. So if you have something that's working well and you feel like you can make a difference, I think both in good times and tough times, I always say this, if you're digging a tunnel, I lost my dad early this year, but my dad used to be a railway engineer, railway and road construction engineer. So he also used to say this. And used to build roads and railways in tough mountainous terrain. So he used to say that when you're digging a tunnel, it's very easy to give up because there's all darkness around you, right? But if you keep digging, there'll be sunshine on the other side at some point of time. So I think being perseverant is very crucial. If you keep digging, there is always sunshine at the end of the tunnel, is my view as well.
So basically what Ritesh is saying is wait for the sunshine on the other side. There is light at the end of the tunnel, as they say. How has Startup India helped in boosting the startup ecosystem in India?
You know, I was listening to, I'm sorry, I use sports analogies anyway. It's not just because you're here. I was listening to now, I think, one-time champion and one-time finalist of IPL, Captain Hardik Pandya from Gujarat Titans. And it's amazing, right? Like, he's also gone through so many highs and lows, and he's come back always in a manner that's unparalleled. And, you know, I mean, you have to give it to the guy that, of course, I mean, if you're competing against Dhoni, like, if there's one person you want to lose from, I think it's Dhoni. So I believe that he had a great, like, he's privileged to be there. But I was listening to him, and he said, there are two ways of building a team. One is, you know, you bring, you pay the top dollars and bring the best people. And the second one is you create the most enabling environment for your team members, for your support staff, and work together to create success. I think what Startup India has done for India is exactly the same. I think Startup India has created an enabling environment. 2016 की बात है, Startup India का उद्घाटन उस साल हुआ था. तो हमारी मदर उससे पहले हमेशा कहती रहती थी कि ये स्टार्टअप वाला जो तुम काम कर रहे हो, ये शायद तुम गलत संगत में पड़ गए हो, जिन लोगों ने तुम्हें समझा दिया ये स्टार्टअप की दुनिया में जाने के लिए तुम्हें नौकरी की तरफ जल्दी करना चाहिए, otherwise it will be too late. And I have 3 siblings, and all my 3 siblings are Asian parents' dream: engineering, business school, great jobs. So they used to always seem to black sheep nikla. So in that construct, 2016 में when Honorable Prime Minister inaugurated Startup India, and very generous of him, he said, मैं जब भी रितेश से सुनता हूँ, मुझे लगता है कि एक चाय वाले ने होटल चेन का बिजनेस आइडिया के बारे में क्यों नहीं सोचा? Now it's like from his perspective, saying that it's a big deal. Now my mom was looking at that on national television. So next day when she spoke to me, she said, you must be doing something right. And I don't say this from a personal stories context just because it affected me or our company. I think it affected tens of millions of people to say that शायद startups is not such a bad thing. अब मैं किसी से बात कर रहा था, we have a weddings business, wedding with a Z. We host we host annually 30,000 weddings in our banquets. So I was speaking to somebody who's one of our partners. He's in the matrimonial business. I'm married, so I was not discussing for my personal. The reason I give context to say that.
Recently married, please wish him.
Thank you.
Got married this year?
This year. As well. It's been a roller coaster year.
Lucky lady.
But when I was speaking to him, उन्होंने कहा कि आजकल startup entrepreneurs are actually at the top of the list of matrimonial prospects, both male and female. Because लोग कहते हैं passionate होते हैं, लोग कहते हैं कि उनकी technology understanding बेहतर होती है. So suddenly, increasingly, people say that earlier government jobs would be at the top. Now government jobs still very relevant, but entrepreneurship is getting close or probably ahead. So I think it's fantastic to have an enabling environment for talent, for investors, for business owners. Like the startup events, awards, which they do annually, and I've been a jury member for the last 2-3 years, has made a huge difference in bringing together fantastic new companies to the fore. It's just an incredible feeling, Mandira, to be at a place जहाँ पे अभी हम लोग गए थे, India Global Forum हुआ था UK में. I had the opportunity to meet Prime Minister of UK, yes. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. He of course said that he's looking forward to come to India at the G20 and have the mithai here. He loves barfi, he said. But he knew about OYO and our investments. And he said, we are really looking forward to more investments from India. I do an annual program where I invest in 5 to 10 young companies in the पहाड़ी जगह इलाकों में, लद्दाख में, हिमाचल में, जिनको हम equity free grants देते हैं अपनी business बनाने के लिए, कि कोई buckwheat से tea बनाते हैं, कोई local brewery बनाते हैं from the local format. तो हर साल we try to take these entrepreneurs to London as a part of the India Global Forum, right? Just the amount of excitement people had, whether you are, Lord, whether you are, Sir. I think they, like these 5 kids who went from Ladakh, whose first international trip ever, they ever got a passport and a visa. they were the heart of the show. So that's what we have today. I think it's just an incredible time for Startup India's impact to be visible around the world, where young Indian entrepreneurs, whether you're from Raigada or Gaya or Kerala or Ladakh or somewhere in the Northeast, you're not thinking that I want to build and create impact in my town. You're not thinking I want to create impact in Odisha or Bihar. You're thinking that I want to build a world champion. And that's what Startup India has done, in my view, in the last 7-8 years.
What do you think that the state governments should do so that support is received even in smaller places where people are wanting to start businesses, startups?
So I'll break it into two parts. First is, I think the state governments, I think, have done an incredible job. For us in India, I think what is fascinating is that we got into the entrepreneurship bandwagon at the right time, because we have great demographic dividend. This year, India became the world's most populous country. 1 in, I think, 5 or 6 people is an Indian today. We have an incredible populace which is making a difference around the world, which means that our ability to launch entrepreneurial ambitions is an opportunity and a necessity in some way. So जब भारत का स्टार्टअप इंडिया का उद्घाटन हुआ या लॉन्च हुआ, मैंने देखा कि सडनली सारे स्टेट्स में, जो एक कोऑपरेटिव फेडरलिज्म की हमारे देश में बात करते हैं, सारे स्टेट्स में कंपटीशन शुरू हो गया कि who can outdo the other to have startups be in their own state. I hail from Odisha. My business is in Haryana. My father and mother hail from Haryana and Rajasthan respectively, and I speak fluent Telugu. So at least in these 4 states I have seen, जहाँ से मेरा खुद का रिश्ता नाता है, इतना एक्टिव एंगेजमेंट रहा है, चाहे वो स्टार्टअप्स को फंड करने के लिए एलपी कंट्रीब्यूशन हो फंड्स में, चाहे वो इंक्यूबेटर सेट करना हो, चाहे यूनिवर्सिटीज में एनेबलमेंट सेट करना हो. मैंने देखा है कि आजकल अगर आप मुख्यमंत्री हैं या फिर पर्यटन मंत्री हैं, चाहे आप वो इंडस्ट्रीज मिनिस्टर हैं स्टेट्स में, everybody meets entrepreneurs, like young entrepreneurs who never had a seat on the table earlier, right? Like in the last 7-8 years, suddenly they get not just a seat on the table, they get an opportunity to share their view. तो मुझे लगता है कि सबसे पहले states have done a great job in the last few years. It would not have been possible just with one intervention. It needed both. What can they do more? I think the first one is just a more enabling environment of making sure that when there are challenges, and understandably there will be challenges. We are a big country and we have a big population, many types of businesses. Just give a listening ear. You know, entrepreneurs don't want solutions always. But अगर उन्हें कोई मिले जिनसे वो बात करके उनकी तकलीफ शेयर कर सकें, I think that solves 50% of the problem, because then they know that there is a patient listener. No, not all solutions will come overnight, but there will be some solutions that will come over a period of time, and we have seen that happen, by the way, in the last 7-8 years. That's one. Second thing I would say is that just encourage them. I think entrepreneurs will be successful regardless. आप अगर उनको प्रोत्साहन देंगे, आप अगर उनको देख करके कहेंगे कि आप अच्छा कर रहे हैं, आप आगे बढ़ते रहिए, हमारे राज्य में और नौकरी लाइए और टैक्सेस भरिए, आप देखना वो अपने आप करेंगे वो चीज़ें. Because they, like entrepreneurs, we are all first generation entrepreneurs, right? We are not family businesses in any way. So our upbringing and value system is very much like that. Our upbringing is of a format जैसे हमारे पेरेंट्स को कई बार कहते हैं बिजनेस करना नहीं चाहिए, तो हमने तो डिस्पाइट वो किया है. तो वो वैल्यू सिस्टम अभी भी है कि मिडिल क्लास अपब्रिंगिंग की, आप अगर टैक्स कंट्रीब्यूट करेंगे स्टेट के साथ में तो उस पर इम्पैक्ट क्रिएट होगा. आप कैसे इंश्योर करें कि यू डू द राइट थिंग. आपका नाम और इज्जत ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है देन द मनी यू मेक. That value system is there in almost all entrepreneurs. Most entrepreneurs are from the middle income or lower middle income backgrounds, right? So if you just encourage them, you will see that the positive impact in your states and nation come by. There is no question. We're seeing that already. Just keep doing more to get more upside.
Ritesh, how about the education system? I mean, you thought something of it that everybody knows you dropped out. So any tweaks, any changes we can make in the education system so as to, help develop a mindset of an entrepreneur?
देखिए, इस पे तो मेरी बड़ी पैशनेट चर्चा भी हुई है रिसेंटली. एक समय हमारे देश के अभी एजुकेशन मिनिस्टर उड़ीसा से हैं, तो उससे मौका भी मिलता है, एक बार मौका मिला उनसे इस बारे में चर्चा करने का. सबसे पहले मैं एजुकेशन में क्लैरिफाई करना चाहता हूँ. I believe जब हमने थियल फेलोशिप का शुरुआत किया, when we started the थियल फेलोशिप, in the contract there is one line that starts the contract, right? The line is, and please consider listening to it carefully, we never let university interfere with education. Yani ki, I'll say it again, we never let university interfere with education, meaning education opportunities are everywhere. University is just one of the ways of getting there, right?
Academics vis-a-vis real learning, real world learning.
Right? Or within academics, we kitne opportunities, right? There is IGNU kind of learning, there is skill-specific learning, there is, of course, university system. तो मेरा सबसे पहला मानना है कि एजुकेशन सिस्टम में बदलाव की तो ज़रूरत है गिवन द न्यू वर्ल्ड वी लिव इन, चाहे एआई को लेकर के हो, चाहे वो हम आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस के बारे में सोचें या अमेरिका एंड इंडिया की कोलैबोरेशन के बारे में, चाहे whether it is in the opportunities of data science, whether it is in the opportunity of the new economy where physical and digital are actively integrating, which is the phygital impact. उसमें मुझे लगता है the new education policy that has come about is making a massive difference. और ये बहुत quietly impact हो रहा है. A lot of us who follow it may be seeing it. The amount of school collaborations between India and overseas in terms of curriculum has dramatically evolved. Access to knowledge has dramatically evolved. The number of overseas universities wanting to set up shop here is rapidly increased, but of course, it all takes time. But I get those emails saying that, well, a friend of mine who's dean at this university is wanting to make an India visit to try and set up a university. Would you mind spending time? So I'm seeing that there's a lot more of that time being spent. There's an active engagement between industry and academia that is happening. My view is that each one of these 4 or 5 things that I mentioned, more of it will make a difference, especially the industry and academia connect. Silicon Valley became what it became, partly because of the existence of Stanford University and UC Berkeley there. Because the students there were actively interacting with entrepreneurs in the region. My sense is in the future, that will be the same case in a lot of university towns in India as well. And we are hoping to make our difference. We are actively working with some universities in India. And I hope agar aap entrepreneur hai, business owner hai, industrialist hai, to please consider actively working with academia, selfishly for your cause, because your companies will benefit, so will the nation. So that's my thought.
I'm running short of time. I'm going to ask you one question and then I have a rapid fire. So the rapid fire is going to be really quick. My one question, last big question to you is, I mean, we know of the Nykas and the Mama Earths and Pristine. In your opinion, the contribution of women entrepreneurs to the, startup ecosystem?
No, I think सबसे पहले तो मुझे लगता है कि women entrepreneurs का आज के दिन में contribution already been unparalleled. They bring 2 to 3 very important things, right? I think they of course bring the ability to inspire millions of young and women especially women who post maternity don't come back to the workforce. To say that it doesn't matter. If you have done well, you can be successful in the very long term. Everybody needs a break, and companies should respect it because the natural progression. ये पहला है. दूसरा मुझे ये लगता है कि they have also made a huge difference in women employment. क्योंकि आप देखेंगे all of these leaders have replicated, like Nykaa, तो I'm closer to, like they have replicated a lot of leadership being women that further inspires more companies to come about. My wife, earlier girlfriend, is also an entrepreneur, small business owner. So I see it very closer home that the empathy and the attention to detail that she and other women entrepreneurs bring is probably superlative to what I or probably my other male counterparts would bring. So my sense is, women entrepreneurship is waiting to happen, and I believe that if this really, like women entrepreneurship really goes viral, I think it can be a multiplicative impact creator in our GDP. Like I think हमारे देश का जितना GDP है आज, I think 3 trillion plus, उतना GDP अगले 10 साल में या 15 साल में मुझे लगता है सिर्फ women entrepreneurs जोड़ सकते हैं अगर वो उस तेजी से join करें.
Cheers to that. How's marriage in one word?
Sorry?
Rapid fire. How's marriage in one word?
Oh, it's love.
Say it in one word.
It's love.
Lovely. Okay. Correct answer. Okay. If you were to choose one city to start a new business, which would it be? Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chandigarh?
We started in Gurgaon, so Gurgaon, Haryana, all the way.
Okay.
Maybe Uttar Pradesh also, if I had to. I think Gurgaon, Haryana or Uttar Pradesh.
Okay. How do you like to spend your weekends or days off, if you have any? Movie marathon, gaming marathon. Are you a gamer? Movie marathon, partying in a club, or at home with books? You're allowed to say none of the above.
I think one of these and one outside. I think home with books or sports. I still like to sort of play sports.
Sorry, I should have brought that into the mix. Sorry. Yes.
I'm still old school that
I've
way.
seen all the sports analogies and I should have brought that into the mix. Okay, what is your comfort food? Maggi, Rajma chawal, a tub of ice cream, or?
I think chawal plus, right? Like it could be rajma chawal, kadi chawal, dal chawal, doesn't matter. But
Chawal plus plus.
Chawal
Okay.
plus plus.
If there was a movie to be made on your life, what would it be called? ये किसी ने नहीं पूछा इनसे? I'm surprised.
The perseverance of someone who wasn't destined to be where he is.
It's a very boring title. I'm just telling you, you could do better. It could be something like having dreams cost no money. But anyway, who would be the lead?
Having dreams cost no money. That's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Or who would be the lead actor? Who
Lead
would you
actor.
like to play you?
You know, I'm just, I relate a lot with Kartik Aaryan, right? Like small town boy,
Ooh, nice.
making a big difference, has an ambition to make a big difference, is broken in and now sort of feels like he's a part of the ecosystem. So I think I'd say Kartik Aaryan. That's just top of mind.
Yeah, big round of applause. We're going to see Kartik Aaryan playing him in a movie very soon because you can manifest that, I'm sure. Now, you met so many people, prime ministers, left, right, and center. Who is the one person left that you'd like to meet, who you'd like to have an engaging, dinner with, to pick the brain of?
There's quite a few. But I'll tell you
Rapid
this.
fire means one.
Yeah.
Come up with the first one that came to
I
your
think
mind.
the 3 women Padma awardees from Karnataka, who just have such an inspiring story for the difference they have made for their communities. I'd love to have the opportunity to meet them at some point in time.
आपको कैसे फील होता है जब लोग आपको दुनिया के सेकंड यंगेस्ट सेल्फ मेड बिलियनेयर बुलाते हैं?
I think I'm not very comfortable with that. मुझे लगता है कि I'm very happy just being called a person who's building a high quality startup, making a difference for customers. I feel like money as an analogy is, call it probably my upbringing. I think generally doesn't. I feel like next line तक कब जा सकते हैं?
Okay. One thing nobody knows about you.
I think there's a few, but one of them is I have had the same breakfast probably 5 years now, till humanly possible, leave apart a few days.
The exact same breakfast.
Yeah, I mean, 2 changes. It used to be idli 4 years back, and it's been oats for dalia for last 3.5 years.
I hope that's not the rule in Oyo.
No.
I hope there's varied
At Oyo, you
breakfast
get
there.
all kinds of breakfast if you come. So it's just my choice. But, that just shows you that you have choice at Oyo.
And my final question to you, you inspire so many. Who is your inspiration?
Oh, I have so many people who have inspired me, right? I think if I have to name some in the entrepreneurial world, I think one that I always think about is Uday Kotak. Again, first generation entrepreneur, built a bank which is so a clear leader in India, done it the right way. His entire team has been with him ever since he started his company. And it doesn't feel like he's a first generation entrepreneur because he truly has done it with charisma, with care, and with through the highs and lows. So I think he's probably one that would come to mind.
And that's what you're doing too, and will continue to do so. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you.
So much.
I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope all of you did too. Thank you. Thank you
I
very
would
much.
request our speakers
A few
to
minutes over time.
I request speakers to please stay on the stage. We have a small token of appreciation for you. I would now request Mr. Ranjish Ahuja, editor Z News and znews.com, to please come up on the stage. I would also request Mr. Abhay Oja, CEO Z Media Corporation Limited, to come on the stage and present a small token of appreciation from our side. Can we have a round of applause for Ms. Bedi and Mr. Agarwal? That was indeed quite an engaging conversation on the unicorns in India and quite a candid rapid fire round as well. For joining us today. Before we move ahead with the show, I would like to thank our sponsors, co-presented by Paytm, Policy Bazaar and Watcho, State Partner Punjab Government, Ecosystem Partner TIE, Special Partner Sirka Paints, Associate Sponsors Simco Swift, APML and GL Bajaj Educational Institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, please also share your learnings and insights from this event using hashtag ZDigitalIndia on your social media handles. I'm also very happy to announce that we are currently trending on Twitter. We would now move on to our next panel discussion, which will talk about how the digital economy is moving ahead in times to come. Or if I may say, supercharging with 5G. It has led to a tectonic shift in how the organizations operate and interact with the customers. Well, 5G was officially launched in India in 2022 with an aim to have 5G connectivity across the country by 2024. And to discuss how 5G is empowering the next wave of transformation in the country, I would now like to call our esteemed panelists and a moderator on the stage. The session will be moderated by Dinesh Sharma, Technology Editor, Z Media. Can we have a round of applause for Mr. Sharma? Let's also invite our next set of panelists on the stage. Murli Krishnan B, President Xiaomi India. Can we have a round of applause for Mr. Murli Krishnan? We also have with us Satkirti M, CTO at Airtel Business. Can we have a round of applause for Ms. Satkirti? And Umang Jindal, Head RAN Software and Network Performance Excellence, India, Southeast Asia, and Oceania Ericsson. Stage is all yours.
Good evening, everyone. So finally, we are meeting again. It was an engaging session before that. So when we talk about digital India, the first keyword that comes to our mind is 5G technology. A lot of people know what 5G technology is, and a lot of people are still trying to figure out the potential of 5G technology. And that's why we have such a wonderful guest here who will not just explain us the meaning and the meaning of 5G technology, but also the potential of 5G. Let me just quickly start with Ms. Satkirti M from Airtel. If I'm not wrong, October 1, 2022 is when Prime Minister Modi deployed 5G technology in India at IMC with Airtel. How do you see 5G technology is going henceforth? And it's not just related to consumers, end consumers. I think 5G has more potential to it. It's not just about downloading and streaming, it's way beyond that. So could you just shed some light on the whole 5G technology and where all Airtel is planning to cater its services to?
Absolutely. Good evening, everybody. I think considering you're absolutely right, 5G as a technology and as a service is something that we launched last year in IMC. But I think where we took off is, that it would be available for the masses. But, considering the rollouts that has been having aggressively, I think we've taken a fabulous start compared to the way that 4G evolved and the deployments had happened. But today, it's available to the normal consumer. But in terms of usage, because we've always been looking at it saying that for a normal consumer per se, it's basically faster speeds, throughputs, and probably concurrency, which largely the young gamers use, which is what is probably the use case today. But I think we have a huge, potential and opportunity that we're seeing on the business platforms that we're working on. Even at the IMC, in fact, we showcase so many use cases. But over the last 6 months, though we've been doing a lot of tests and working with a lot of startups and trying to bring up various use cases across healthcare, agriculture, traffic monitoring, transport industry. I think now we're beginning to see from normal, just like a very fancy word, 5G, etc., to moving into a lot of opportunities that we're seeing. And so we're building a lot of private 5G networks, which initially started off only with 4G, but now we're seeing that in terms of having the required concurrency or the required absolutely low latency that's required in the manufacturing industry, etc. It's becoming more and more important for us to evolve that way. So I think the transformation is more towards the business-prone solutions, and at the same time, it's picking up its usage on the consumer side also. So that's largely where we're taking it to.
So let's understand from the consumer's perspective. Murli, if we look at the recent data, 5G devices have crossed 4G devices shipment. I'm talking about May 2023. How do you see consumers accepting this technology and how excited they are?
Thanks. Firstly, I'm wondering why your chair is so far away. I'm like, maybe you should be closer, but that apart. Look, as with everything in life, there are two parts to the story. The bright side, of course, is there is immense potential with 5G. One could kind of stretch this to say that if 3G is what got us connectivity, if 4G is what got us convenience, perhaps 5G is what's going to get us convergence, right? Maybe that's the spectrum that we are heading towards. Perhaps the roti kapda makan of the future would be like mobile, 5G data, and AI, for all you might know. And those are all still in the realm of possible. However, India can take pride in the fact that anywhere in the world, perhaps we would be right up there in terms of having the fastest ever 5G rollouts. And all credit to the mobile operators, including Airtel, in just getting that done in such quick speed. And that's still a continuing game, number one. Number two, smartphone brands can, of course, pat ourselves in the back in terms of rolling out devices that above 20,000, pretty much everyone has a 5G device. Between 15 to 20,000, it's a majority. 10 to 15,000, it's still getting there. So the devices are also available. But if you go ask the consumer what their perceptions and expectations about 5G are, and we did two dipsticks. We did a dipstick in December. We did a dipstick in July. And they tell us that, hey, look, when we ask them what does 5G mean to you, they tell us 2-3 things. One, 5G means faster bandwidth. 5G means uninterrupted connectivity. 5G means no buffering. Good, right? So we ask them, okay, what will you use it for? I will use it for entertainment, streaming. I can download things faster and so on and so forth. Like you keep peeling the layers of that onion. Bottom line is that in the consumer's mind, 5G is faster 4G. Is that it? Is that why $1.49 trillion of spectrum have been purchased by mobile operators? And that is what in some way intrigues me as well as troubles me. Right? There is some disconnect there. There is immense potential. The building blocks are there, the networks are getting rolled out, the devices are there, but there is some missing piece. And let me not jump to answers right now. Maybe we can let it for the conversation to evolve and then work on some of those. So it's a bit of a conundrum, is the way I put it. A lot of promise, good start, but there is some missing piece which we still need to figure.
Umang, last time when we met on stage, I asked you about the deployment of 5G, the infrastructure, and I was even cribbing about, why I don't have access to 5G back then. But talking about today, how infrastructure has improved so far, and henceforth, how soon can we see the internet penetration gets better in tier 2 and tier 3 cities?
Okay, first of all, you got 5G now?
Yes,
lovely, great. So, talking about what 5G has done in terms of infrastructure, I would say it's nearly 1 year, not even 1 year since India started talking about 5G. We have more than 150K base stations deployed in India, more than that combined. We have more than 100 million subscribers today in India who 200 plus devices models in the market. That's the rapid pace India has taken. Now, when I say these numbers, when you look at it, why people have adopted it, surely there is a game into it. And when you talk about the future, what we see is that the ecosystem from a device point of view is going to increase, and I look forward from our device vendors and partners that how do they boost it up. We're looking towards our telecom service providers to start to put more and more services into it. So there are more services going to come in 5G, and in terms of infrastructure, what we expect is that we will have a very good coverage of 5G by end of this year in India. Then comes new applications. And the life is very simple in that terms. I remember those days when we used to have MMS. And then things gradually evolved towards watching video. I remember those days when we used to look at, buying on, telephonic buying. Then things came, Amazon, Flipkart, we are buying online. Have you imagined that there could be immersive buying? We put ourselves as an avatar, we put our glasses on, we put the dresses onto the avatars, we figure out what we want to see. So things will change. The content will come, the capabilities will come, the use cases will come. We need to build the networks, and that's where we see the networks will continue to happen. When we look in towards infrastructure, let's say we talk about Korea or Japan or US, those markets have rolled out 5G. Singapore, for example, Singapore claims to have 98% coverage, one of the smallest island country. And when we start talking to them, they're talking about humongous number of applications which they're going to launch. And they are coming up. For example, they're trying to meter everything on the IoT piece on 5G. That's one area where we see things. So when there are networks, applications tend to come. When there are networks, then content tends to change. I remember watching a video was a buffering thing. On the stage, before this coming to the stage, I was talking about, we hear complaints that, guys, I could not complete my Teams call while on the move. So we never expected such complaints to come in the network. So the consumer behavior is also changing, and it's an evolution. I think things will change and networks will keep on growing. And here I would like to really comment on what our government and policy holders have done. I remember 4-5 years back, we used to struggle a lot for infrastructure on the streets. Today the government of India and the Department of Telecom has really helped that, guys. You go and wherever you want to put a tower or infrastructure on the streets, there are policies now. So you can see towers are coming into government areas. You can see small equipments getting rolled out on the streets just to have capacities, just to have coverage. So from that point of view, what we see is there is a length and breadth of equipment to be rolled out, and India is progressively moving around that.
Satkirti, as we know that 5G is also going to boost AI sector, and a lot of people are already scared and skeptical about their job. Their job is in jeopardy. How do you think 5G is going to contribute in the AI sector, and does those people really need to worry about their job?
I think let me just take the first question. I think AI is something that we've been talking for quite some time, and yes, it is there, and I think it's actually enabling a lot of us to look at data in terms of analysis and whatever that we can do much more faster. And that's 5G just makes it much more faster, much more easier for us to do it. But looking at that today, I mean, a country as large as us, I don't even see that coming in at this point of time, because like as technology that we're talking about, 5G is still very nascent, etc. But I mean, presently we're just looking at what is it that it can do. I mean, we're far away from speaking about that.
Only one sector which has actually seen substantial growth with the advent of 5G is gaming industry. And your smartphones are also having flagship chipsets there. Do you think this industry will definitely get benefit out of it? And how Xiaomi is serious about gaming industry with the advent of 5G?
Look, gaming has always been a very large use case for smartphones, irrespective of 5G, right? And that's also been driven by increasing processing capability, faster RAM, more capable ROM, as well as much better displays which give you that immersive experience. So gaming has anyway been on the upswing, irrespective of 5G. But then again, right, there is this interesting conundrum. One, Processor capability, GPU capability is definitely improving. Of course, there is this entire element of managing thermals, but technology is evolving to manage that fairly well. Now there you're expecting processing to happen on the device, right, with very little data interchange on the cloud. But what 5G will allow you to do is to have fairly average processors, mid-range processors, but use compute on the cloud and then use 5G with low latency, high bandwidth, high concurrency to move data back and forth so that you do cloud gaming. Now, how that will change gaming smartphones is a very, very interesting question. I think the jury is still out on that. What that will do is democratize gaming. Today, if you need a gaming capable smartphone, perhaps you're dishing out, let's say, 30,000 rupees. Most people buy more expensive devices, but I think 25 to 30,000 rupees is a reasonable price to pay with a good amount of RAM there. This will enable even entry to mid-level smartphones to play cloud-level gaming, and hence the number of people who can participate in high-intensity gaming will obviously explode. But that apart, to connect this to the point that Satkirti was making on AI use cases. Today, a smartphone is already a device where tons of AI already happens, right? Very, very simple things, but behind the veil. For example, photography optimization, right? You take a picture, the kind of software AI optimization that results in the final picture that you take, I mean, only people in the industry know how much of AI actually goes in that. When you take a portrait picture, when you take a black and white picture, or the way your apps are managed, your RAM is managed, your battery is managed, there is some element of artificial intelligence. And let's not assume artificial intelligence is only large language models. No, it's not. It is a much wider spectrum, and there's a lot of that already on your device. So AI is already there and it's all around us. Sure, there are specific applications like LLMs, which now have become super cool and so on, but AI has been there for a while, ever since smartphones have existed.
Umang, if we compare Indian market with the rest of the world, first, what are the advantages India has when it comes to deployment of 5G? And do you really think that we are going in the right pace as compared to the rest of the world?
Truly speaking, I really feel proud to be sitting in India and doing 5G in India. I work for many European countries as well as for Southeast Asian countries on 5G. But the amount of receptiveness we have this time, the world is looking towards India. And when you talk about infrastructure, for example, I talked about the numbers of base stations that have been rolled out. I think we are rolling out one base station at India level every 2 minutes. And when you look at that pace, and when you look at China or US, they have not done that pace, though China has more number of base stations than India because of the sheer size of the country. But then today, India stands number 2 in terms of rollout pace, in terms of number of base stations deployed. And when you talk about, how things have changed in terms of globe, India has more of unique proposition in terms of population. India has more of unique proposition in terms of scale. And we see that, all the policies, for example, the Make in India policies, the Atmanirbhar policy, all these policies are driving more and more investments in India. We are seeing more and more industries coming into India, and all these things are shaping up more and more 5G use cases and applications around. India is also being looked on towards the FWA market, which is one big thing which global is looking at, where we see a lot of unconnected homes which are still to be connected. There's no fiber over there, and they're looking at wireless as a technology to connect those houses. A lot of new enterprise businesses are coming with small companies coming in. They need connectivity. Our, class B, class C in rural India, where, government is spending huge amount of money to have fiber penetration. Will it happen or not on time? Or we end up doing a lot of wireless connectivity? That's another area. On the industrial side, what we're looking at is a lot of robotic use cases coming in, where we see world is looking towards how do we do that. So there are a lot of things, and something which I really feel proud of is that if you remember last 2 weeks back, the telecom minister launched the 6G alliance. So India has started talking about 6G already today. We are not only 1 year into 5G. So that's what I see is a proud feel factor for India, where globe is looking towards us.
Satkirti, what step does India need to take to unlock the potential of 5G? Because you know this technology in and out. So what would be your answer to that?
step back a little bit before I answer that question to what Umanga was saying. Because today for us, like, I remember when we launched 5G to where we are today, I think the potential that it's already actually opening up in terms of everybody's adoption to 5G, like I said, that, is the fact that, FWA, he was talking about reaching remote. But today for us, in terms of ease of deployment, in terms of, because it's nothing but an access network that you provide to the end customer. And with the kind of bandwidths that we give, be it remote branches, etc., and the kind of, I don't know if you're aware, Grameen Bank rollout across the country is aggressively moving. Just like we're talking about launching a site every 2 minutes, I know that we are involved in actually giving connectivity to branches across rural India literally every single day. And we're also trying to power saying that, is it easier for us to develop 5G 5WA? Because it's also looking at giving the required ease of deployment and far better performance than a normal RF link will do. So in terms of what, in terms of unlocking what it is as a potential, because I think the initial stickiness or the unawareness of 5G and the cost of deployment and cost of investing into it is now started to actually step down. And I think the more we talk about use cases, the more we start sort of explaining and trying to look at what is it that we can give larger to the industry, such as automation, healthcare. Healthcare is extremely close to my heart, but we can do wonders on that. And I think if that's where we can sort of enable 5G to region, I think specifically in the rural part of India where healthcare is today still not where it should be, I think we're a far way we have to go.
I'll come to that, healthcare and education as well. But before that, Murli, as we know that with the advent of 5G technology, electronic manufacturing, there has been a boost to the electronic manufacturing in our country. From OEM's perspective, what kind of skill set our youth would be requiring to actually grab this opportunity, the so-called golden era of...
Sorry, are you talking about manufacturing, or maybe you could rephrase the question?
I'm talking about the manufacturing. When it comes to manufacturing, we want to make India as the next manufacturing hub. So what kind of skill set would be required where the youth can, understand and learn the new skill set to grab this opportunity?
I'll tell you what, broadly, when you're manufacturing, there are a whole bunch of roles that open up, right? So one is supply chain and logistics related, the other is production engineering related, third, of course, is shop floor assembly and supervisors and so on and so forth. But perhaps the most important role that requires human capability building is to focus on quality. Right? If you're making devices in India and exporting that to the entire world, proudly stamped made in India, you want to ensure that they match quality standards anywhere in the world. And hence, while a lot of the other capabilities are already getting built, concerted investment in building up our quality management processes from the, let's say, undergrad level can perhaps go a long way in enabling us to become that manufacturing powerhouse that we want to be.
Okay. Umang, I might be expecting too much too soon, and you have also spoken about 6G. Do you think this is the right time to discuss about 6G, and how and when can we expect 6G to get deployed in our country? I know it's a long journey, but
I would say that you're expecting 6G now is pretty early. What we are looking at is the use cases. We need to start looking at advanced 5G use cases, and we need to enable the ecosystem to have use cases deployed and usable by the public, by the industries, by the healthcares, everything over into it, right? Once the use cases are there, 6G brings new revolution of use cases. So, like we talked about during the Mobile World Conference, there are more and more use cases which are getting complex, and affordability of the use case will define how quickly it can be adopted. And that's where 6G is today. And I would say it is more about the standardization on 6G right now, where things are getting standardized, things are in the research mode. For example, you talked about AI. To me, AI is something which is going to change the whole world. Taking as an example, today everybody looks at Google, and we see that red street, and we figure out how to do it. Just imagine the same thing happens onto the network. That you are moving around into this area and you feel that there's a traffic and you want to have a good seamless experience. So things like these will all be handled by AI, and that's where we are looking towards 6G to have more and more complex use cases from a network point of view, from a user point of view, and we need to start early for that. And we demonstrated about the 6G devices, 6G base stations in Mobile World Congress, and that's where we are looking at, 3-4 years down the line, India would surely be talking about 6G in field.
Muli, you want to add something?
Jump in. You know what? I think that's the wrong question to ask, right? India today is at a situation where, with enabling government policy and private enterprises, a lot of magic gets created. I mean, we're just seeing that sector after sector, industry after industry. Let's just take mobile and telecom industry in and of itself. The spectrum got allocated, and within record time, rollout started, and today, probably 30-40% of the nation is covered. By the end of this year, it'll be closer to 70-80%, right? So network rollout at record speed. Sensing the opportunity, handset manufacturers, OEMs like us, we started rolling out devices, and today, almost 40-50% of the shipments are 5G, right? The third piece is to develop those use cases. Like 4G had its own unique use cases. WhatsApp video calling is the single biggest killer use case of 4G, followed by YouTube video watching, right? These are the two big use cases, killer use cases of 4G. Perhaps some such thing will quickly get figured out even in 5G. So with the right enabling environment, a lot of things will happen. Look, 5G, 6G, 4G, AG and all, these are all enabling tools. I don't think we should fuss too much about it. Technology will keep evolving. Day after tomorrow, we'll be talking about 10G. But the question is, what is that eventual solution that you're trying to solve for? Do we have the capability to, and some of this is science fiction, take this with a pinch of salt, but do we have the capability to envision a situation where, everything is connected with 5G, 6G, whatever there is, right? Every device that you have out there is connected. There is AI at the edge. These guys are intelligently orchestrating a better life for each one of us. No, honestly, those are the kind of things which enabling policy of the government and the power of private enterprise, that is what is going to take India and humanity forward. Everything else, technology is a tool, will come, will go, will keep evolving, and because that is how life is meant to be. Technology will keep making our lives better. The question is, how do you orchestrate all of this together?
Okay, we are running out of time, but I want to wind up this whole session by asking one question, and I want everyone to answer the same question. 1 trillion digital economy is what we are targeting to. 2026 is what our minister has said. How each one of you what are your plans to make it actually happen, either by 2026 or before that? So let's start with Murli, you.
2-3 things. One, by our concerted, continued focus on democratizing technology to ensure that smartphones and smart devices are available to millions of Indians. We have shipped 200 million devices thus far. How do we double, triple that should be one ambition that we pursue, number one. Number two, doubling, tripling down on our focus on making in India, not just devices like phones and televisions, but also the entire component ecosystem. That's the second area where we think we can contribute. And three, how do you continue to leverage India and scale exports out of India? These are the three ways in which we at Xiaomi truly believe we can make a difference to that $1 trillion ambition.
Mr. Kethi.
I think from us, it's just leveraging the basic connectivity and going from just selling connectivity to providing solutions and make every industry customer that we work with much more enriched, and look at how is it that, we make their service, their applications work far better with kind of giving the required connectivity and technology that we work with.
Umang?
So we have the responsibility to roll out the infrastructure in the country, and 3 things that we really are focusing on is to make equipments and deploy them which have least power consumption. Then we're talking about the least size, and those can be rolled out anywhere and everywhere, quick and easy installations and deployments, and they should be ready to support multiple technologies. Like the equipments that we deploy for 3G should support 4G, 4G supports 5G, and so the chain continues. So these are 3 focus areas that we are working on to make sure that we create more jobs around that, we create more stuff in terms of economies, in terms of scales, and then we are talking about a whole AI chain which will make sure things are running around.
Well, on that note, thank you very much indeed for joining us here today. It's been a pleasure having you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would request our panelists to please stay on the stage. We have a small token of appreciation for you. I would now request Mr. Abhay Ojha, CEO Z Media, to please come up on the stage and present a small token of appreciation from our side to our panelists. Can we have a round of applause for our panelists, ladies and gentlemen? There were indeed quite some big takeaways from that very engaging and insightful discussion on India's 5G power transformation. Can we have a round of applause for our panelists, ladies and gentlemen? A round of applause for our panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us today. I would now like to thank our sponsors, co-presented by Paytm, Policy Bazaar and Watcho, state partner Punjab Government, and ecosystem partner TAI, special partner Sirka Paints, associate sponsors Simco Swift, APML, and GL Bajaj Educational Institutions. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we now move across to our next session. It is on the e-revolution project of Punjab. In other words, how Punjab is digitally modernized. And for that, we have with us Shri Aman Arora, Cabinet Minister of Punjab. Shri Arora, for the second consecutive term, holds the honor to represent the birthplace of great martyr Shahid Udham Singh Ji in the Punjab Assembly. Shri Arora is currently looking after 4 major departments that are employment generation, skill development and training, new renewable energy resources, governance reforms and grievance redressal, printing and stationery in the Punjab government. Shri Arora's sheer passion and commitment to do something good for the society introduced him at a very young age to the selfless politics of honesty and accountability. Well, ladies and gentlemen, honesty, integrity, transparency and accountability are the key mantras of Shri Arora's life. And he firmly believes that one must give back to the society to make it a better place for all. I would request Shri Aman Arora to please come up on the stage, and I would also request everyone to please welcome him with a round of applause. The dialogue will be hosted by Pranay Upadhyay, anchor Z News.
So अमन अरोड़ा जी, स्वागत है आपका जी मीडिया के डिजिटल इंडिया डायलॉग में। लेकिन अब इस डायलॉग के ऊपर डिजिटल इंडिया और डिजिटल की जो पंजाब की कोशिशें उस पर बात करें, उससे पहले मैं ज़रा आपसे ये जानना चाहूँगा कि पंजाब को अक्सर तंज किया जाता था उड़ता पंजाब लेके, लेकिन अभी तो पंजाब ज़रा डूबता हुआ नज़र आ रहा है। क्या कुछ हालात हैं इस समय वहाँ पे? आपके इलाके के अंदर भी काफ़ी इस समय डिल्यूज है।
देखिए, सबसे पहले तो आपको जी मीडिया को बहुत बहुत मुबारकबाद कि आपने एक बड़े अच्छा इनिशिएटिव लिए इस इम्पॉर्टेंट सब्जेक्ट के ऊपर आप ये कॉन्क्लेव करा रहे हैं। सेकेंडली, जहाँ तक बात रही डूबता पंजाब की, देखिए एक नेचुरल फ्यूरी है, कोई शक नहीं है इसमें। सिर्फ पंजाब ही नहीं, और पंजाब में जो ज़्यादा मार पड़ रही है वो बिकॉज ऑफ जो हिमाचल में जो फ्लड्स वहाँ से आ रहे हैं, उसका इम्पैक्ट हमारे ऊपर भी आ रहा है। अनप्रेसिडेंटेड रेनफॉल है इस बार। सो लेकिन ऑल सेड एंड डन, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट अंडर द डायनेमिक लीडरशिप ऑफ भगवंत मान जी
सारे के सारे हम फील्ड के ऊपर हैं। पहली बार हो रहा है कि मिनिस्टर्स, एमएलएज, ऑफिसर्स खुद जाके लोगों को बचाने लगे हुए हैं। बट डेफिनेटली अब इतना भयानक मंजर बना हुआ है, सिर्फ पंजाब में नहीं, पूरे नॉर्दर्न इंडिया में। तो उसके लिए सब लगे हुए हैं।
तो चलिए अमन जी, जरा डिजिटल इनिशिएटिव से बात करते हैं। पंजाब को लेके ये कहा जाता रहा कि पंजाब, जिस समय देश में आईटी रिवॉल्यूशन हो रहा था, पंजाब ने वो बस मिस कर दी। आप लोगों की सरकार आने के बाद आप लोग ये कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि वो बस जो है वो पकड़ी जा सके। तो क्या कुछ कोशिश कर रहे हैं जिससे कि पंजाब आईटी रिवॉल्यूशन में, आईटी सर्विसेज में, आईटी एक्सपोर्ट में या डिजिटल कनेक्टिविटी के अंदर मकाम हासिल कर सके?
देखिए, इसमें कोई शक नहीं, जो आप कह रहे हैं ये हुआ है और अनफॉर्चुनेट हुआ है, और हुआ भी उन हालात में कि जब पंजाब शुड हैव बीन द मोस्ट फेवर्ड स्टेट। बट मैं कोई पॉलिटिकल बात नहीं करूंगा, लेकिन पिछले समय में ऐसा पॉलिटिकल एटमॉस्फेयर रहा कि कोई भी इन्वेस्टर वहाँ पे इन्वेस्ट करने में थोड़ा हिचकिचाता रहा। लेकिन अब पिछले तकरीबन 1.25 साल से हम लगे हुए हैं, क्योंकि पंजाब एक ऐसी स्टेट है जहाँ का यूथ बड़ा एंटरप्रेन्योरिक है, और पंजाब को आगे लेके सिर्फ और सिर्फ आईटी के माध्यम से जाया जा सकता है। इसमें अगर हम अपनी गवर्नमेंट की सर्विसेज की बात करें तो सर्विसेज जो हैं वो ऑनलाइन डिलीवर कर रहे हैं। हर रोज़ हमारे 42,000 का फुटफॉल है वहाँ पे सेवा केंद्र में। और टाइम, और आप देखिए कि किस तरीके से गवर्नेंस में फ़र्क पड़ा है। एट वन पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम बिफोर वी केम इनटू पावर, जो पेंडेंसी हुआ करती थी बियॉन्ड टाइम लाइन, दैट वाज ऑलमोस्ट क्लोज टू 27%। टुडे इट इज़ 1.11%। सो यू कैन सी द रिडक्शन, और किस तरीके से जो हम उसके ऊपर फोकस कर रहे हैं। बट डेफिनेटली यस, देयर इज़ अ लॉन्ग वे टू गो, और उसके लिए जो इंडस्ट्री है, जो एक्सपर्ट्स हैं, जो एंटरप्रेन्योर्स हैं और यूथ, उन सब को कनेक्ट करके तभी पंजाब को आगे लेके जाया जा सकता है। हम पिछले दिनों में हम ईवी पॉलिसी लेके आए हैं, आईटी पॉलिसी लेके आए हैं, जो कि किसी भी स्टेट से आई थिंक यू कैन से इट्स अ मच बेटर पॉलिसी। सो बट डेफिनेटली आई एग्री विद यू, इट्स गोइंग टू टेक सम टाइम।
लेकिन अमन जी, डिजिटल की अगर बात करें, आईटी कनेक्टिविटी की बात करें, यूथ की एम्प्लॉयमेंट की बात करें, पंजाब के सामने एक बड़ा चैलेंज रहा है उसके यूथ का एम्प्लॉयमेंट, जो कि इस समय भी है। नशा एक चैलेंज है, टेररिज्म एक चैलेंज है, और डिजिटल इसके लिए एक प्लेग्राउंड साबित हो रहा है, क्योंकि जिस तरीके से वहां इसका इस्तेमाल किया जा रहा है। तो आप उसकी रोकथाम के लिए क्या कर रहे हैं ताकि डिजिटल का इस्तेमाल तो हो लेकिन सही इस्तेमाल हो?
देखिए, जहाँ तक पहले टेररिज्म रहा पंजाब में, उसने पंजाब को काफ़ी पीछे ले गया। उसके बाद नारकोटिक्स का, नार्को टेररिज्म जो है वो बड़ा लंबा समय चलता रहा। इससे भी बड़ा एक जो चैलेंज जो पंजाब जो फेस करता रहा है, इनफैक्ट आज भी कर रहा है, और उसके ऊपर सरकार आज की डेट में लगी हुई है, जो माइग्रेशन हो रही है यंगस्टर्स की, वो आई थिंक दैट इज़ अनप्रेसिडेंटेड। आज जितना स्टूडेंट है वो सारा का सारा स्टूडेंट जो बाहर जा रहा है, उसने यहाँ की इकोनॉमी में कंट्रीब्यूट करने के बजाय वहाँ जाके 40 साल काम करना है। हम उसी को रेस्ट करने के लिए, उसी को रोकने के लिए लगे हो। और इसमें जो डिजिटल और आईटी का, पंजाब कैन बी द बेस्ट डेस्टिनेशन जस्ट बिकॉज ऑफ द फैक्ट कि आप हमारे जो यूथ है, अगर आप उनका डायलेक्ट की बात कर लें, अगर आप उनके जो कनेक्शंस की बात कर लें, ठीक है ना, तो वो यूरोप लगा लीजिए, आप यूएस कनाडा लगा लीजिए, वो उनके साथ मैच करता है। हम अब मोहाली की अगर बात कर लें, तो मोहाली इज़ द थर्ड स्टेशन इन द होल ऑफ कंट्री, कि जहाँ पे जो कॉल सेंटर्स हैं वो हैं। इसके लिए काफ़ी काम जो है वो चल रहा है, और आने वाले टाइम में आप देखेंगे कि पंजाब विल बी इन नेक्स्ट another 3 to 4 years, पंजाब विल बी द लीडर इन डिजिटल।
इसके लिए तो आपको बहुत सारे लोगों की मदद लेनी चाहिए, लेनी पड़ेगी। सेंटर से जिस तरीके के आपके संबंध हैं, जैसे झगड़े चलते रहते हैं गवर्नर साहब के साथ, आपकी रोज तनातनी चलती रहती है, तो ये बीमारी कुछ कम करने के लिए कोई कोशिश?
नहीं, देखिए, हमारी तरफ से तो कोशिश चल भी रही थी, पहले भी चल रही है, आज भी चल रही है। लेकिन अगर अनफॉर्चुनेटली सेंटर में आज जिस तरीके का माहौल उन स्टेट्स के प्रति बनाया गया जो अपोजिशन रूल हैं, दैट इज़ अनकॉल्ड फॉर। मेरे को याद है कि जब 2014 से पहले बीजेपी की गवर्नमेंट नहीं आई थी यहाँ पे, तब कहा जाता था कि फेडरल और स्टेट्स दे शुड एक्ट एज एल्डर एंड यंगर ब्रदर्स, ताकि एक कलेक्टिवली देश को आगे ले जाए। लेकिन आज जिस तरीके से वेंडेटा पॉलिटिक्स हो रही है, अब आप यू वोंट बिलीव हमारे जो फंड्स हैं, चाहे वो आरडीएफ के हैं 4200 करोड़ वो रोक रखा है, हेल्थ का रोक रखा है।
आप भी तो एल्डर ब्रदर को परेशान करने का कोई मौका छोड़ते
नहीं, हम तो क्या करते हैं, हम तो सिर्फ अपने लोगों की बात करते हैं। अगर उसके लिए अगर कोई उसको ये समझ ले कि हमें, देखिए अल्टीमेटली बात पता है क्या जी, अल्टीमेटली आपको यू हैव टू थिंक अबाउट पीपल फर्स्ट। स्टेट के लिए, देश के लिए पहले सोचना पड़ेगा। अगर आप अपनी पॉलिटिक्स के लिए पहले सोचेंगे तो इस तरीके का माहौल बनेगा, जो कि हमारे साथ क्या, आप दिल्ली के साथ देख लीजिए, आप वेस्ट बंगाल के साथ देख लीजिए, ऐसा माहौल आई थिंक पहले कभी नहीं था और ये होना भी नहीं चाहिए।
सर, अभी आपको हाल ही में एक नया पोर्टफोलियो मिला है जो कि गवर्नेंस रिफॉर्म का पोर्टफोलियो है। गवर्नेंस रिफॉर्म के लिए क्या और कैसे आप करने जा रहे हैं? मतलब गवर्नेंस रिफॉर्म जो है उसमें पंजाब एक बॉर्डर स्टेट है, एक सेंसिटिव स्टेट है, उसके अपने अलग चैलेंजेस हैं और सेंटर के साथ भी उसको कोऑर्डिनेशन के साथ काम करना ही पड़ता है। तो ये गवर्नेंस रिफॉर्म का जो नया मॉडल है, किस पर काम कर रहे हैं आप?
देखिए, गवर्नेंस रिफॉर्म मैंने वही बताया ना आपको कि जैसे हमारा सबसे पहले जो बेसिक मॉडल था वो सर्विस गवर्नेंस रिफॉर्म्स, आपने लोगों को सीमलेस टाइम बाउंड सर्विस कैसे देनी है। पहले सेवा केंद्र के थ्रू हमने चलाया, अब उसमें जो हमारा सेवा केंद्र का मॉडल दैट इज वन ऑफ द मोस्ट सक्सेसफुल। मैंने आपको बताया कैसे 27% से 0.11 पे हमारी बियॉन्ड टाइमलाइन पेंडेंसी वो आ चुकी है। मूविंग फर्दर, हम जो सर्विसेज हैं वो सारी की सारी डोर स्टेप डिलीवरी जो है वो शुरू कर रहे हैं। सारी सर्विसेज जो है ऑनलाइन अभी भी चल रही हैं। और इसके अलावा जो हमारा कनेक्ट पोर्टल है दैट हैज बीन रैंक्ड एज नंबर 1 इन द कंट्री। इसके अलावा जो हम आने वाले टाइम में जो आज भी हमारी जितनी सर्विसेज हैं वो सारी की सारी आप घर बैठे अप्लाई कर सकते हैं। आप सेवा केंद्र में जाकर काम कर सकते हैं, आप ऑन कॉल आप अपने सर्विस आपको डिलीवर हो सकते हैं। कॉल आपके पास बंदा आएगा, सर्विस सर्विस आपको मिलेगा। ये प्रोजेक्ट हम रोल करके, इसके अलावा घर बैठे हुए आप अप्लाई कर सकते हैं अपने केवाईसी, आपको सर्विस आपको ₹1,000
देने की जो आपने बात की जो अभी तक उसमें ज़रा वो महिलाएं जो पंजाब में सुन रही होगी वो ज़रा जानना चाहिए वो कब देंगे आप?
देखिए, ऐसा है कि बड़ी जल्दी वो भी पूरा हो जाएगा। हमारी 5 गारंटीज थी जो अभी एक हेल्थ और एजुकेशन सिस्टम को रेवोल्यूशन कर चुका है। जो शहीद होंगे उनको 1 करोड़ रुपये हो चुका है। इसी तरीके से हमने सिर्फ एक जो आप प्रॉमिस बात कर रहे हैं, इसके लिए हमारे ऊपर जिस तरीके का डेट पिछली सरकारें छोड़ के गई हैं मोर देन 3 लाख करोड़, उसको मैनेज करते हुए इतनी सब्सिडीज देना, इतने बेनिफिट्स देना, आई थिंक दैट इज ऑल्सो अनप्रेसिडेंटेड। जहाँ तक रही 1,000 रुपये की बात, वो भी बड़ी जल्दी ही वादा हमारा पूरा होगा। आप ये तो सिर्फ वो है जो किए गए थे। जो वादे नहीं किए गए थे, जो डिस्कशन ही नहीं हुई थी, वो कितने, अगर मैं वो बताने लगी तो आई थिंक मेरा सारा टाइम उसी में चला जाएगा, सो आई वोंट गेट इनटू दैट। बट ऑल सेड एंड डन, जो फाइनेंशियल पोजीशन स्टेट की छोड़ के गए थे उसमें लोगों, सबसे बड़ी बात मैं ये मान के चलता, देखिए जो गवर्नेंस होती है दैट्स एन ऑनगोइंग थिंग। आपको हर रोज कुछ ना कुछ यू हैव टू डू समथिंग टू गिव गुड गवर्नेंस टू पीपल। लेकिन आज की डेट में हमारा जो सबसे बड़ी स्ट्रेंथ या अचीवमेंट भगवंत मान जी की लीडरशिप में है वो ये है कि आज से पहले जो लोगों का ट्रस्ट खत्म हो चुका था सरकारों के ऊपर, पॉलिटिकल लीडरशिप के ऊपर, कि कोई लीडर, कोई सरकार ईमानदार हो ही नहीं सकती, हमने 1.25 साल के अंदर वो ट्रस्ट जो है वो दोबारा रीबिल्ड किया है। आज लोग कहते हैं कि हाँ, और यहाँ जैसे दिल्ली में अरविंद केजरीवाल जी, पंजाब में भगवंत मान जी जिस तरीके की गुड गवर्नेंस, ट्रांसपेरेंट और अकाउंटेबल और ऑनेस्ट गवर्नेंस दे रहे हैं, उससे लोग खुद आगे आना शुरू है। और बट स्टिल इट्स गोइंग टू टेक अ लॉन्ग टाइम टू मेक पंजाब नंबर 1 स्टेट अगेन, बट वी विल डू दैट फॉर श्योर।
चलिए सर, लॉन्ग रास्ता है, जल्दी जल्दी चलना पड़ेगा। और राजनीति में कहा जाता है वादे तो सब लोग करते हैं, लेकिन इरादे सही होना बहुत जरूरी है। आपने ये तमाम चीजें पंजाब के बारे में हमसे शेयर करी, इसके लिए आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया।
Thank you so
और
much.
जी मीडिया आपका स्वागत भी करता है और धन्यवाद भी देता है आपको इस चीज के लिए।
I would request Mr. Arora to please stay on the stage and would now request Rajneesh Ahuja, editor Z News and ZNews.com, and Dinesh Garg, CFO Z Media Corporation Limited, to please come up on the stage and present a small token of appreciation from our side. Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a round applause for Mr. Arora and Pranay for holding that insightful dialogue on Punjab's e-revolution. Can you a round of applause for Shri Aman Arora? Ladies and gentlemen, before we move ahead with our other panel discussions, we have a special performance from Sandeep Ranade for all of us. Mr. Ranade is a Hindustani classical vocalist and is the creator of the Apple Design award-winning app Naad Sadhana. Well, he has also composed songs like Na Karo and Anand Barsa, which were extensively shared on social media, and I'm sure all of us must have heard it at some point of time. Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a round of applause for Mr. Sandeep Ranade? A round of applause for Mr. Sandeep Ranade, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm Sandeep Ranade. I'm a software engineer and a singer. In fact, I call myself the Geek Gayak. Over the last 5 years, I've been working on building an app called Naad Sadhana. Naad Sadhana aims to help every musician practice, perform, and publish their music anywhere, anytime. Naad Sadhana listens to music, analyzes it, and then creates and plays beautiful music in real time using the power of artificial intelligence. To achieve all of that in a fraction of a second, the app requires very, very low audio latencies, and so this is only a Apple exclusive app because Apple is the only platform where these and other building blocks are available. Apart from being a software engineer and a singer, I also compose under the pen name Nadarang. Back in the pandemic, just before our first lockdown, I was feeling depressed, I was feeling helpless. I was desperate to find some way to help. I thought of creating a song that would help people remember the do's and don'ts during the pandemic and perhaps also give a much needed dose of optimism. This is how the song Na Karo was born. Let me sing the song for you. Na karo, suno more baat, 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 na milao haath, हम जोड़त हाथ, न मिलाओ हाथ, हम जोड़त हाथ, न लगाओ मुख सो मैले हाथ, ना करो, सुनो मोर बात, ना करो, मरन जाने रे जाने निजाने धजाने निधम गग मरन जा ना करो, सुनो मोरे बात, मत डरो धीर धरो कुछ दिन रात, मत डरो धीर धरो कुछ दिन रात, कोरोना पे मिल करेंगे मात, कोरोना पे मिल करेंगे मात, जग कर निरोगी दीनानाथ, ना करो, In March 2020, I sang the song. My app played the AI orchestra with me. It also recorded me. And I sent the music video to a handful of people. And in 15 minutes, my world completely changed. First, I got a call from my Guruji, late Padma Vibhushan Sangeet Martan Pandit Jasraj ji. And he said, कम से कम 300 लोगों ने तुम्हारा गाना मुझे भेजा है. I had not sent it to him then. And then he said, तबला बहुत बढ़िया बजाया है, किसने बजाया है? He assumed that I was being accompanied by an expert tabla player, not software. And that made me very proud because that meant that my little app had passed the musical Turing test. A few minutes later, I was browsing on Instagram and I saw my own video shared by none other than the multi-Grammy, multi-Oscar award winner, A.R. Rahman himself. And I distinctly remember losing all sensation in my feet at that point in time. A year later, I won the prestigious Apple Design Award for innovation for the app. And then just a few months ago, I had the great honor and privilege of sharing my story and singing for Apple CEO Tim Cook. Over the last 25 years, my mission has been music without boundaries. And the immortal anthem, Mile Sur Mera Tumhara, is a perfect and fitting tribute to celebrating unity in diversity, to blending the rich traditions of Indian and world music with technology to create a melodious and harmonious future. मिले सुर मेरा तुम्हारा, मिले सुर मेरा तुम्हारा, तो सुर बन दिशा से बहके सागर में मिले बादलों का रूप लेके बादलों का रूप लेके बरसे हल्के हल्के हो मिले सुर मेरा तुम्हारा मिले सुर मेरा तुम्हारा दीम तनन दर्दतानुम तनन दीम तनन दर्दतानुम तनन तनन दर्दतानुम तनन दीम नदरे दरे तन दरे तन तुम दर्दतारे तारे दानी दीम तनन नन दर्दतानी दान 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 दीम तनन दर्दतानुम तनन तनन दर्दतानुम तनन सप्त सुर न तीन ग्राम बंसी बाजे रे सा सा नि धा नि ध द प प म ग म ध ग म म ग रे सा धा धा ग धा 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 ग धा 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 ग धा चरण धरन धरत पाग परत नहीं परन झांझर झन के झन न न न न न ना दर दर दीम त तुम तन 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 ना दीम तन न दर दर ता नूम तदरे ना दीम तन न दर दर ता नूम तदरे ना तन न दर दर ता नूम तदरे ना ना दर दर तुम दर 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 दीम तन न न न दीम तन न न न दीम तन न न दर दर तुम तन न दर दर तुम तन न दर दर तुम तन न न दर दर तुम ना दर 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 तुम दर दर ना दर 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 तुम दर 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 तुम दर दर तुम दर दर तुम दर दर तुम दर तुम त दर तुम त दर तुम त दर तुम त धागड़ दिख तुम तकड़ां धा धागड़ दिख तुम तकड़ां धा धागड़ दिख तुम तकड़ां धा तुम तन न दर दर ता नूम त दर ना तन न दर दर ता दे दे ना दा
That was quite a mesmerizing and wonderful performance. Can we have a round of applause for Mr. Sandeep Ranade? I would request you to please turn the stage, Mr. Ranade, and I would request Mr. Madhu Suman, the Chief Business Officer, Beyond and Z Business, to please come up on the stage and present a small token of appreciation from our side to Mr. Ranade. A round of applause for Mr. Sandeep Ranade, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Ranade. Ladies and gentlemen, our next session is about how India is on a path to become the world's electronics manufacturing hub. The electronics industry is one of the most important entities in the growth of the Indian economy. Well, India has been steadily increasingly its share of global electronics manufacturing market. To discuss this, I would now like to call our esteemed set of panelists and our moderator. Well, the session will be moderated by Dinesh Sharma, Technology Editor, Z Media. Can we have a round of applause for Mr. Dinesh Sharma? I would also like to invite our next set of panelists for the discussion, Madhav Sheth, Technology Expert. A round of applause for Mr. Madhav. Dinesh Sharma, Business Head, Commercial PC and Smartphone System Business Group, ASUS India. And we also have with us Avneet Singh Marwa, CEO, SPPL, and Tathagat Jena, Head of Marketing, HMD Global. He's also very fondly known as TJ. Can we have a round of applause for our panelists?
very good evening, everyone. And thank you, first of all the guests who have come here. I'm super excited and super thrilled that all of you guys have made it to our event. Of course, monsoon season has hit everyone, but still you guys have made it, so it's much appreciated. As we all know that India wants to become the next electronic manufacturing hub. So that is what we want to discuss here. We want to discuss the democratic advantage of it. We want to understand whether India has that kind of skill set or not. So, let me start by you, Mr. Madhav. In just a span of 5 years, you made a company out of nowhere. How much potential do you think India has, and how do you think India will go henceforth from here?
Thank you very much for inviting me over here, and thank you very much for acknowledging my past records. But I would just like to say by one word that if not India, then where? Probably you need to understand one thing, that India has the biggest growth story at this point of time. Starting from Japan, where we started manufacturing in the 70s, to moving down to China. Now is the time for India. With all the link incentives which the government has been providing at this point of time, it may be a production link incentives and multiple other benefits which the government is giving to promote manufacturing in India, bringing the component manufacturing in India. I think this type of support which the government has been giving is a very clear thing that probably we have to collaborate. The corporates have to collaborate with the government, work in hand together, and make sure that this dream has been achievable. But at the same point of time, I completely believe that manufacturing is something going to outburst in India very soon. And probably the estimates are more than $300 billion to be exported from India or to manufacture in India as well.
Dinesh, we not just share the same name, but we also share the same interest, which is technology and electronic devices. So I want to understand the consumer trend here. Who would have thought that the gaming industry and the gaming hardware industry will become so big here? Perhaps you are the market leaders in it. So talking about the consumer trends and how crazy are Indians when it comes to adaptation of electronic devices?
Thanks, Dinesh, for calling me here. Really appreciate it. And thank you everyone who's watching or present out here. See, India has passion for technology, that's for sure. Our demographics support huge growth of electronics in the future when it comes to smart devices. And if you look at the penetration of smart devices in India compared to any of the other developed countries in the world, whether you compare it to US, which has almost 1/3 population of India, or you look at China, which is similar population, it's massively higher. I mean, like Madhav is also out here. The smartphone industry in China would be 3x that of India. The PC industry of China is almost 5x of India. So what we are seeing is that there is a huge gap, between the potential and the current market. And this gap is increasingly going to get narrowed down. And therefore, while other countries in the world, like the developed countries in the world, are seeing saturation in smart devices penetration, you will see increasingly growing trend of these devices in India. And we have huge headroom for growth. Coupled with that, if you see the consumer adoption in any industry, we've got the lowest data rates in the world, which is fueling the growth of smartphones. We have a huge population, which is currently going to enter workforce. And typically what we've seen is that even in certain segments of market where smartphones or PCs are under-penetrated because of lower income backgrounds, those consumers, when they actually get into the workforce, they are the youth. They are the ones who are actually adopting new technologies. Specifically when it comes to gaming, we are seeing a huge uplift because of the kind of gaming ecosystem which is coming up. Like in our youth, we used to play cricket. We used to have all outdoor games. But as technology has evolved, at our time, when we were young, we used to play games which were typically pre-programmed. So you used to move from one level to the other, but once you've crossed certain levels, there used to be not much excitement in crossing the same levels because you used to know how to beat that game to get to that level, and you used to aspire to go to the next level. But in today's scenario, with these kind of networks which are there, and the kind of gaming ecosystem which is there from the hardware capability perspective and the AAA gaming titles perspective, feeling of just playing cricket, right? It's all about your skill rather than actually, just playing against the computer. And there is nothing which is fixed. It's all dynamic because there's another person playing against you in real time. And that is what is fueling the growth of gaming. And what we see as trends is that, especially when it comes to, let's say, smartphones or even, let's say, PCs, a lot of a youth today want two-in-one capabilities where they want products which can do gaming as well as they can be very productive. So they want to do their studies, but they also want to do gaming together. So these kind of trends are clearly there in the market, which are completely changing the dynamics of electronics industry and what we can offer. We've just recently been launching even a gaming console, which is a handheld gaming console with inbuilt complete gaming PC. So, the tech is going to great heights. Gaming is one of the key areas which is definitely growing. And of course, electronics has huge scope for growth in India.
Tathagat, you represent the brand which we Indians have an emotional attachment to, Nokia. How has been the journey for Nokia here, and what are your plans? Because, like I said, Indians have some emotional attachment towards Nokia. So considering that factor in mind, what are your plans to boost the manufacturing capabilities of our country?
Well, Dinesh, thank you for inviting, and thanks to everyone here. Yes, it's a massive legacy brand, and as we speak, we are in a very significant player in the basic phone segment, which is we call it keypad or feature phone segment, and also in smartphones, we are on a resurgence mode in terms of trying to find the right products for the masses. When it comes to manufacturing, we already a strong believer in Make in India, and most of our EMS partners like Dixon, and there are multiple others. We believe in that, and it also gives us a competitive advantage when it is Make in India. Of course, the government's schemes of PLI is largely towards boosting that, and even the minister has gone on record saying that he wants to have mobile phones as one of the top 10 exports from the country by next year or so. So the plans are definitely very, very good. We want to work with more and more EMS partners, and we are also looking at not only EMS partners but also ODMs, and actually get components, because that's when the next growth will come from. Then brands will really be able to save on a lot of logistics and freights also, when both the ODM and EMSs will be based out of India. So really looking forward to what the rest of the year has for us. And just on the industry per se, I think this is one industry, Madhav also referred to it. It's been on a continuous growth path ever since the data floodgates were opened the last 4 to 5 years. 2022 was probably a slight blip, but then it's really going on relentlessly. Where interestingly, while the number of units sold is stable, every year, every quarter, the amount that people are shelling out for a phone is increasing, which points to innovation, points to upgrades. So all to play for.
Avneet, as we are talking about the capabilities of manufacturing, electronic manufacturing here, you are already manufacturing devices, the TVs, ACs, and much more. So the potential of Indian market, current market. So what do you have to say on that? And is this the right time to actually think of making India the next electronic manufacturing hub of the world?
Thanks, Dinesh, for inviting me, and good evening, everyone. There are each phase that India has been, there is a journey that India has taken in 80s, as Madhav sir said, that Japanese, and we were doing a lot of core competency manufacturing by that time. 90s, we were still manufacturing core competency, but in late 90s and 2000, the whole ecosystem of manufacturing actually changed. That's when, there was a lot of trading that had started happening, and manufacturing of core competency. That is what exact manufacturing electronic matters the most, where you localize the product and backward integration happens. We lost that part somewhere. And that's where, we saw that a lot of more new companies came in. And then when we lost that, of course, we lost designing and tooling. And that's where most of the company relies on, because when you don't have design tooling, and then you lose technology. So we were just outsourcing everything. And then early 2000, we started that path. And suddenly in 2014-15, there's a narrative, then again you have to be, you have to endorse Make in India. So it's very difficult for the industry to that kind of a shift. We started with assembling in India. We're still doing that. Unfortunately, COVID happened, and then we were more into about Atmanirbhar, where the need of manufacturing of core components were because we were relying on one or two countries, especially for televisions. For semiconductors, there are about 3-4 countries we were relying on, and we saw what happened. We lost many companies, including us. The bottom line were completely hit because of that. Now we are realizing that we need something that should be the kind of core components that we want. We have an import of $100 billion of electronics every year, out of which $30 billion is only screen and semiconductors. So this is the first time the industry is on the back foot, and because we had a very extraordinary PLI scheme that government gave, we are still very optimistic that that deal, whatever has been called off, but semiconductor and screen is very, very important in the country. I feel that if it's the manufacturing of those products will not happen, we'll be assembling whether it's cell phones, PC or televisions. Next big point that happened, why the trading of goods stopped happening, was government took very, very, I would say, bold decisions of banning CBUs. And that's where the setting up of factories, assembly started happening. So now time has come that whatever scheme, whatever MOUs were decided, we need to have some sort of conclusion, and we need some sort of dates where we can start those projects. Otherwise, we'll be hanging around again with assembly, and will not be competitive. If we again, as Minister said, that exports are very important. Mobiles we have started, but again assembling. If we need to be one of the superpowers, we need that kind of $1 trillion in the economy. Then exports of electronics has to happen.
Madhav, in financial year 2022 and 2023, India shipped about, I think, more than $10 billion worth of smartphones. Do you think India has demographic advantage that we can capitalize more? And how much support do you think Indian government is giving when it comes to incentives? PLI scheme is there and much more. So what do you have to say on that? Can you shed some light?
See, I completely believe that demographics in India is supporting the exports. The biggest reason you have to understand is India has got the biggest millennial population, one of the most skilled labor in the world. And this millennial population are about to make sure that probably we are able to upskill ourselves and help our country to grow to the next stage. So India definitely has that advantage, not only for the demographics, but also over the skilled population and the young manpower which they have it. Apart from that, I think as what you rightly said, the government incentives is definitely helping. I'll give you a very small example. While I was in Shenzhen in China, even the CGs, the consul generals are pushing and helping the vendors over there to come down to India and open up their their parts industries in India as well, to start manufacturing in India. What does this mean? That is probably that we want that manufacturing has to come down to India, not just assembly. And I believe that that is the right step which the government has been to push manufacturing in India. Probably exports is one of the biggest thing which I believe it can happen, because it will also be not only for the benefit of the country but for the balance of the payments also, grow the industry, create jobs, and probably that is one of the biggest advantage if we start manufacturing over here. So probably I have no doubt about it that this is not going to happen. It should definitely happen, and I've seen that it's been growing month on month every year.
Dinesh, whenever you bring in a new device, there's a lot of research around it and behind before bringing that device to the market. Do you think India is lacking somewhere in research department when it comes to markets like Taiwan, China, South Korea for that matter? So where do you think India is lacking behind when it comes to becoming the next electronic manufacturing hub? And also, if you can shed some light on what kind of consumer trends can we expect more? Because of course, we Indians are obsessed with new smartphones. Every 6 months, we are just changing our smartphones these days. But it is way beyond that. So if you could just shed some light on that.
So I think I'll just divide the question in two parts. If you traditionally look at India, I think what we picked up first on is software. I mean, like TJ and I both have worked with Samsung together at a point of time, and the number of software engineers that we had in India were probably more than what were there in Korea. So point I'm trying to make is that whether it be a large semiconductor company like Qualcomm or Intel, they have huge number of software engineers in India. I'm sure all of you would also anecdotally note that the top tech companies in the world on the software side are run by Indians. And most of the senior management out there is also Indian. So as a country, we got very good at software. A lot of our engineers, a lot of our students who are doing engineering, they started aspiring to become software engineers. Recently, I was reading the newspaper a couple of days back, and there was an article on how the top 10 IIT JEE students who scored the best in advance have actually taken up computer science at IIT Mumbai. Why not electronics engineering? So, and if you look at, like even our, most of the students I know right now who are actually going to US and studying in the top universities out there, they're also aspiring to do computer science. So computer science and software capability was the core forte that Indian engineers focused upon, because those were the kind of opportunities which were available in India and also outside India for most of our engineering talent. Now, when it comes to hardware, when it comes to semiconductors, when it comes to manufacturing of components, what matters is electronics engineering. And if you see countries like Taiwan, from where my company is, and I often visit out there, I see a huge emphasis on electronic engineering. I see top engineers out there being experts in electronic engineering and aspiring to work with companies like ASUS, TSMC, and they are very hardware centric. They are really masters in hardware of electronics. I think it's chicken and egg story. So as manufacturing will move to India, it will start with assembly for sure, as sir rightly said, right? But when assembly starts and the industry is shifting based to India, obviously everybody would move towards cost optimization at a point of time. It has to happen. It's a cycle. In that urge of cost optimization, what you will see is that even there would be first movers either from the domestic industry side or from international markets like international companies who would want to, at a component level, create cost efficiencies, because they will see a need gap. The need gap would be that, okay, like somebody is assembling, if I can actually, give him a component here and reduce his total cost of BOM, it makes a lot of sense for me to exist in this market. And not only just incentivization that the government is doing, but the economics would actually push more backward integration slowly, steadily. And as these companies expand, as this industry expands, I'm sure the talent, the engineering talent in India would also start graduating towards electronics engineering and getting more expertise in hardware electronics manufacturing. And this is the major R&D gap, that I see clearly India is digitalizing at a very, very fast pace. That's a big trend. Whether it be UPI payments getting digitalized, even if you go to a small shop today, a pan bidi shop, people actually use their UPI apps and they make payments for 10 rupees, 5 rupees. Even small payments are actually happening through UPI. So this digitalization trend is today massive, okay? And in every aspect, it's going to touch our lives. And as the population, the way our growth trends are projected, the way the GDP or the individual income trends are projected to grow, you will see increased adoption of technology. And I think today, smartphones have reached significant amount of penetration. And now what we heard our industry colleagues talking about is increasing average selling price. But there are other categories which also support digitalization, like PCs, for example. They're highly underpenetrated. They would grow big time in the future. And that's why you're seeing a lot of focus from top IT companies in the world on PC manufacturing also in India. So these are some of the key trends that we see.
So, Tathagat, quickly, if you can just tell us about the skill set which is required. We are aspiring to become the next electronic manufacturing hub. So, of course, we would need a particular and a very specific skill set as well. What do you think would be required to actually grab this opportunity to actually become the next electronic manufacturing hub? If you could just quickly.
Yeah, and just before I also answer, I was tempted to when Dinesh was talking about, say, UPI, and you mentioned this as being a loved and legacy brand. Now, UPI, thanks to NPCI and some favored partners, it is now no longer the purview of only smartphones. Very recently, we have launched UPI via basic keypad feature phones, where either you can do it through an SMS if your phone doesn't have a camera, or even with a phone costing 1,500 or 1,800 bucks, you can scan and pay even that. So UPI is definitely getting all inclusive there. To answer your question on skills, Dinesh mentioned software, and that being really the India's identity in a way, so to speak. But a lot of what we have also seen that even the percentage of skilled software engineers, the total number of them, because as companies are scaling up, freshers are always welcome, but there's a maximum demand for people who have 4 or 5 years of experience in software. That number is a finite number. It's not really growing well enough to match the rapid, the startups and the unicorn story. While there is it's a scale up, limitation. There is no such limitations if you really look at the manufacturing, and the government has already started that journey 3 years back. So it is up to a lot of Indian brands to really take that up, and the results will be seen in the future also in terms of manufacturing. Yes, component making, and really the components that even Avneet also pointed at. You could be making a lot of passive components, but the real game changer starts to happen when you get to the semiconductor level, for which you are import reliant a lot. So to reduce that. And lastly, I would say that even the way the schemes are also designed, it is very, very more encouraging towards domestic brands and champions of a lesser threshold level. And if you do the incremental sales of that manufacturing compared to international, so all the encouragement is there for really for manufacturing to take it to the next level.
We are running out of time, but quickly, if you can just answer in 30 seconds, what are the roadblocks when it comes to implementing and speeding up the whole process here? Since you've been manufacturing, so you must have faced some challenges as well. So if you could just quickly shed your light on that.
Yeah, so I'll just conclude whatever we discussed. There are a couple of key points where if you have to be global superpower in manufacturing. Firstly, as I told you, core competency. Second, Dinesh just told that electronic engineers, very important. This has been a problem that all the major manufacturing companies are facing today. There'll be no, if you want to fill this hall with good tooling, designing, electronic engineer, you'll not be able to fill. Trust me. And in China, there are about 4 to 5 football fields that you can fill in. So that's the difference right now. Third, policies, long-term policies, the PLI scheme, everything that has come in. We need long-term, as investor needs a long-term policy to invest in a country. That's very important. Fourth, the basic problem right now that I feel with electronics is the tax structure. GST, some of the products are on 28%. Television, 28%, it's a luxury product. Refrigerator, 700 liters, 18%. It's not a luxury product. This is the discussion that I keep on going with the FM. So, if you need to be competitive, if you need, the demand should be greater than 12 million units for television. If you need to grow, mobile phones were under 12, then 18. Demand needs to grow with less taxation so that, you know, that the country grows. We are selling something which is connected to digitalization of India. So that's really important.
So before we wind up, I need a one-liner from each one of you. You know, in our in this particular industry, in the new India, there's a very famous dialogue these days, "Hum bhi kar lenge." Starting with you, Madhav, do you think India can do it?
Definitely, why not, right? There's no doubt about it, why they cannot do it.
And how can we speed up the whole process? How can we expedite?
It's just about we have to change our intent to do it. That's it, right? It's all about within us. I don't see any other changes to happen because government has taken all the initiatives what they had to take it. It's now about the people within that. I think that's where the change will come.
Dinesh?
See, I think geopolitics favors India. Demographics favors India. Geopolitics, which is, you know, like also pushing India as one of the key alternatives in the world for manufacturing. So that's clearly in our favor. The government is extremely determined right from the top, and they are pulling in all the right levers at every stage of manufacturing and incentivizing the right resources. Also, they have a long-term vision. If you see the kind of investment which the government is making in semiconductor plants set up, it is like unreal and unbelievable. So all that I'm trying to say is that all these factors are definitely going to drive growth of manufacturing in India.
Tathagat?
Definitely, the highway is set, and even our domestic demand is still so robust that anybody really can take advantage of it even before going into exports.
हम कर नहीं लेंगे, हम कर रहे हैं और अभी ये जारी रहेगा काफी टाइम. Thank you.
Well, on that note, thank you very much indeed for joining us today. Thank you. Thank you.
I would request the panelists to please stay on the stage. We have a small token of appreciation for all of you. And for that, I would request Madhu Suman, Chief Business Officer, WION and Z Business, to please come on the stage. I would also request Dinesh Garg, CFO, Z Media Corporation Limited, to please come on the stage and present a small token of appreciation from our side for our panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a round of applause for our panelists? It was quite an informative session on making India the next big e-hub. A round of applause yet again for our panelists. A round of applause for our panelists, ladies and gentlemen. joining us today. Well, our last session of today's event explores the changing consumerism in the digital era. It will delve upon the factors that influences consumer behavior, especially with the shift towards online shopping and e-commerce. Apart from this, our last session will also examine the impact of social media and the influencers in today's time. And to discuss all of this, I would now like to call on stage our esteemed set of panelists for our last session. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome. The session will be moderated by Sonali Malviya, Chief Strategy and Transformative Officer, Essence Mediacom. A round of applause for Ms. Malviya. I would also now like to call our profound speakers on the stage: Aditi Mishra, CEO, Lodestar; Hari Krishnan, MD and Head Content, Publicis Group; Shubhajit Sen, founding partner, Aprari Consultants. He's also very fondly known as Skit2. And lastly, Archana Agarwal, Vice President, Media Airtel. A round of applause for our last set of panelists.
Thank you, Z, for having us all here this evening. And I have this really interesting set of panelists who are actually friends first. So this is going to be fun today. We'll dive straight in at the moment. And I want to start with saying that, no, and I will not start with change is the only constant being the cliche. But typically how we've known change is to be it has been very slow, very gradual. But in the last few years, we've witnessed change on steroids, be it in the pace of adoption of technology, be it adoption of content across surfaces, the explosion in OTTs, electronic payments and how they've become a way of life, commerce, and not just e-commerce, but quick commerce, social commerce, and even retail, grocery retail, which we never believed we would actually do online. Advocacy as a viable, scaled channel of brand marketing and communication, and the more recent revolution in generative AI, which is also, which has a parallel to gaming as well, which has also become a bit of a way of life. We were talking about how people and children as young as 7 and 8-year-olds are actually influencers on, say, a Roblox or anywhere. A world, a parallel universe that most people in this room don't even know about. The heterogeneity of India is fueling a rise in personalization at scale to the extent that, we haven't even seen ever, or we never even imagined a few years ago. And then I'm not going to start even talking about threads that actually took 5 days to get to 100 million users. Yes, they started off with Instagram, but still, 100 million users in 5 days is almost unthinkable. Moving forward from there, I think one of the most interesting dimensions for me today, and that has been the surprising thing, is that a country as diverse as India, today we're not talking about these changes which are just touching the tip of the iceberg. These changes have penetrated far and deep. That, to me, has been the biggest and most surprising thing, that how a country as large, as wide, and as diverse as India has managed to adopt everything and at scale and at the pace that we have. Yes, COVID changed a lot of things about the life as we know it, but that's how we started. Anyway, diving straight in, let's get a little under the skin of the metamorphosis which has been visible, and especially at the intersection of consumers, digital technology, data, and marketing. Starting with you, Hari, talk to us about how consumers and subsequently consumerism has evolved in the last couple of years, especially from a perspective of consumer purchase journeys and decision making.
Thanks, Sonali. So I think a lot of us in this room would have heard a lot of buzzwords. We know that this whole digital penetration and adoption and a whole lot of things that have happened on the back of COVID and the whole the multiple things which have happened parallelly, I think has given rise to one journey which all marketers know as a content to commerce journey. We know that this whole thing about digital revolution when it comes to brands and consumers it's almost now 20 years now, like it's not new anymore. But the journey that we are talking about, that right from the time something is made available, mentally made available, physically made available, then goes from a journey from awareness to purchase without having to step out of your home, and that's not surprising. All of us know that. But what is fascinating is this whole content to commerce journey has created some new behaviors. And that's what I find very fascinating. We've been working on a lot of stuff and learning ourselves, and we aren't experts in it. And therefore, how all the stages of the journey, of the consumer journey in the classical model is now being catered to by the entire digital journey. That's the earlier there was a termination at the time of purchase, but now everything just happens. So that's what I find is most fascinating, and also evolving at every stage.
Right.
So if that kind of gives us a picture.
Thank you. Aditi, would you like to build on this?
Yeah, so I think Hari said it very nicely. It's something we were always doing, but now it's in a way seamless sometimes. I think the interesting parts, especially that digitalization has brought to all of us, is that the journeys are faster. You know, you can, and you did touch upon quick commerce, you know. So sitting here, I can decide, listen, I think I want a juice, and I can order and it'll come before we finish this discussion. So that's the speed. The other thing I think which has also happened with digitalization is that people are able to explore more.
Yeah.
You know, earlier I could look at things that I knew or maybe my friends knew, but today the world is open. I can decide to order something from Canada or from Thailand and it'll come, you know. So I am able to explore a lot more. I can also evaluate a lot more, and I think from the marketing lens that we all see, you know, together, is it's a very interesting space for brands, because suddenly your boundaries, your areas are not very hard. You know, consumers can change the way they perceive and very rapidly sort of feedback. So that's how I think consumer journeys are sort of transforming.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll touch upon what you spoke about earlier today, which was that they're no longer linear. There is no longer anything which is progressive. There is no awareness leads to interest, leads to consideration, leads to purchase. It is all sometimes happening at the same time, and definitely not stage-wise. And there was something really interesting that Kittu spoke about, Shubhajit, for everybody, and, well, fondly known as Kittu in the marketing fraternity. And which actually just opened my eyes to what the larger thing that we don't think about some of these things. So he was talking about his young daughter who's actually living half her life on, or well, living a substantial part of her life on Roblox, and comes to him and asks for $10,000 so she can go buy a Gucci bag. Thank you very much, consumer journeys, marketing journals, and everything that we've grown up in. All of it has gone away in the fraction of a second. Which brings me to my next question to you, Kittu, and I wanted to spoke to you about trends. And, you know, while we talk a lot about how the world of marketing is evolving, and we talk about a lot of these trends that now are commonplace, but what has surprised you about something that you've seen and the scale and pace of change?
Actually, it's difficult not to be surprised about everything, because, you know, everything's happening together all the time. If I were to look back, actually just pull back a little bit, 4-5 years, I think we don't realize it, but the period, let's say 2012, 2013 through till 2016, 17, was a real transformative time. Because if you think about it, smartphones became cheaper and so penetration increased. 2014, Flipkart started the e-com, wouldn't have carried on, but then Paytm came, and I think the financial things went off very well. And then, of course, 2016, Geo came and the price of data went down. And so if you just contrast India's experience with any other country, these played out over a long period of time in other countries. In India, it was super concentrated in a very short time, and that really upgraded the ecosystem, increased our productivity, etc. But in all of that, all the changes, so that change was, I think, a once in a lifetime. I don't think we will, I'm hoping we'll see it again, but it really was a strange time. But the one thing that really surprised me was how quickly Indians took to transacting online.
Yeah.
Because India, we know from various data, and is a low trust society. Yeah. And if you think about it, pre-Paytm, pre-Geo, 80% of the online transactions actually used to happen on a computer. People didn't trust the phones. Yeah. But once consumers went to that, they really embraced that way of payments, and that's opened up a whole world of services and products and stuff. I think that transformation, because it talks to the psychology of a nation, of being able to trust, and I think that to me was a big surprise how quickly it happened in India.
If I was to ask you a follow-up question on this one, Kittu, and I think we've spoken about a lot of, how quickly change has happened. What do you think are further implications of that? And I think you touched on it a little bit, but do you want to explore that a little more?
I mean, as I keep on saying, I mean, sometimes I wonder whether that was a once in a lifetime sort of a thing. You're old enough, somebody who has been around 99, 2000, there was a similar period at that time. But if you think about it, we are still living off a lot of the changes that happened in those 4-5 years, right? Yeah. We do have an opportunity. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm just going to digress for a little bit to give you one mental frame, which is, I have an opinion that India, there are multiple Indias, and we need to be careful about what India we talk about. But if you go away from, this social circle that we are in right now, I think in India, most of the businesses will still be what I would call a B2B2C business.
Yes.
So whether it's insurance, whether insurance agent will continue to play a big role, the retailer will continue to play a big role. And I think digitizing the middle B is the next big unlock. So what ONDC is doing, for instance, I think is a potential game changer. It's taking a long time. I think what we need to, as a fraternity, as an economy, try to look at is, what are the 3, 4, 5 things which can transform together at this stage? Because you again need an ecosystem upgrade. Just changing one little bit won't change. So specifically to your question, I still feel that there is a big opportunity in digitizing tier 2, tier 3 and below. Huge opportunity there. The other thing, which is a bit of a mixed bag, I think thanks to generative AI, we are sitting on the foothills of an explosion of content. Yes. And how we deal with that, there'll be fake news, there'll be all sorts of good and bad that comes with it. I think those are the 2 things that I foresee in the next 2-3 years play out.
And actually, to your first point, where you said that, getting deeper down pop stratas, and we can start to see a lot of progress already happening there. With the Shikhar app, Levers has actually made a very big leap to including the humble grocer who was literally everyone's go-to, and they've now suddenly been included in this whole revolution. So in a way, the intent is a good thing, and now let's see how quickly it starts to. I mean, early signs are saying that it is already a resounding success. So what it will do is to just empower a lot deeper and go to tier 2, tier 3, and even starting to go down to villages, at least the top villages. Changing track a little bit, and Archana, you and I keep talking about this all the time. I think you've done some incredible work in the space of AI, and I do have the fortune of knowing a lot of it, but the ultimate fan is like, literally, I am a fan of that initiative. But talk to us about the work, the genesis of it, and what are some of the things that you're starting to see? And, why do you think it was a good thing? And what are some of the early signs of success that you're seeing with something like that?
Basically, what we've seen, with the advent of 5G, actually, and the kind of speeds, and there was a panel which talked about 5G earlier, and we wanted to bring to life how 5G can be used from a consumer perspective, be it the metaverse or the multiverse that we did, which was to get consumers to sample or engage with one of our products, right? And engage in terms of saying sample, go sample the content and then go buy the pack. Or when we did something even way before 5G was launched, just to, from a use case standpoint, we did something in cloud gaming. But gaming is a use case everybody knows about. But recreating Kapil Dev's 175 knockout, that was something, again, which used, because getting the facial expressions, getting the, recreating that whole piece required a lot. So then coming to the ultimate fan, which you're talking about, we were launching 5G to the consumer in a large campaign. And we said that, yes, that's great, but what we do, what can we show? What is the power of 5G? And that's where we thought of this idea of ultimate fan. What was the ultimate fan? It allowed the consumer to be transported from one place to the studio of Star Sports Cricket Live, and allowed that consumer in avatar form to interact with cricket experts. And we all know cricket is a religion in the country, right? So it was just giving the power of getting the consumer, the sport, and their icons closer, as close as possible. So that's what was the beauty of bringing that to life and allowing the consumer to engage with it, which otherwise is not possible, was not possible.
Yes, and a lot of it has also been enabled by Airtel. But so we've talked about some really interesting changes and trends that are happening right now in the industry. I think every day we're seeing a new shiny toy from a marketer's lens and from an agency's lens, and everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon and be the first to try the next coolest thing. Aditi, you and I spoke about this, and I think it's really important to say, what are some of the watch-outs? What is it that marketers need to think about, rather than just going head first and being the first to win, to share, to talk about? What would be your advice to marketers, and to say that, before they jump onto any new and shiny trend?
So advice is a strong word, but okay, I would say what my perspective perhaps would be to anybody who works on a brand or a marketing plan. I think the first thing we need to do is perhaps to step back and really understand what's the purpose. In this speed for shine, and it's exciting, no doubt. Like you said, Threads, everybody wanted to try. You want to see what is it all about. Or like we were talking, Roblox. Unless you have sort of experienced it once, you really don't get what is this big thing. So it is important for us to know as marketers what is the next thing, what is the new thing. But when we start planning for a brand or a campaign, I think it's very important for us to still step back and really understand what's the purpose. Eventually, brands are trying to solve a consumer need. They are trying to give something back to the consumer, and unless you can match whatever that new shiny opportunity in technology is to a purpose, we'll get nice awards, but I don't know how purposeful it'll end up being in the long run. And at least in the interactions that I'm having with clients or with brands, this is a big question that is being discussed, saying that this is exciting, this is nice, looks very good, but what is the business metric it is going to move? So I think there is this whole need for us as communicators, agencies, to start doing this match. And sometimes, it's not very easy because you don't have a perfect answer. Everything is evolving. But I think if you have that sense or a framework, at least in your mind, that this is how I'm going to measure the business impact of something, I think it'll help. It'll help.
Can I just add to
Yes,
yeah,
please.
If I give, I think the brand, the way we look at it is the brand has to be the enabler, right? And coming back to the purpose or the objective, what is the objective? There are a lot of nice to do things. कि अच्छा ये भी कर लेते हैं, but क्यों करना है? Let's go back to the starting point of saying and taking a step back and saying what is the objective. If I give the example of last year when metaverse was the big key buzzword, right? Everybody wanted to get onto it. Yes, we can. We got lots of things of saying like, oh, there's a holy party, go, let's sponsor it. But what was the role of the brand in that? Nothing. So we said no. The reason we did our multiplex on the metaverse was because we had content, we were curating content, and there was a pack we wanted to, which was available for the consumer to buy. And we said that the consumer is not going to buy it unless you give the opportunity to the consumer to experience or sample the content which is available. So they don't know what content is, they may not know all the content that is available. So we're giving them an opportunity to experience. That's where the brand became an enabler, and that's why we experimented, right? But if it was a holy party, it didn't make sense because there was no role for the brand. And I think the role of the brand becomes very critical when you do any of these new shiny toys.
Thank you, and couldn't agree more. And I know, Kittu, this is your favorite subject. I know as my first ever client, I think I was a little management trainee, and the first question I was asked, and this is in the era of market mix modeling, and anything we used to go back to, Kittu would be like, so why do you think this is a good plan? But I will actually come back to and let you answer, Kittu, and say...
Well, with less hair, I've gone a bit perhaps more balanced. Perhaps I think there is merit in experimenting for experimentation's sake. So I think every brand today should keep aside an X percentage of their budgets purely for experimentation because you don't know what will be, and you need to build that capability. I want to do a slightly different thing on the majority of your, and maybe this is not the right forum, it's a digital forum or whatever, but I do believe, actually, that I think we, in the recent past, we have over-indexed, some brands have over-indexed between traditional versus digital. The way I think about it is, at the end of the day, digital media typically is an individual consumption. You're seeing it on your screen. And I think what we're beginning to miss as a marketing fraternity are the shared experiences, which is why cricket remains so high, because it's one of the few things, or the big blockbuster of Salman Khan or Shah Rukh Khan, because they're the few things which are common shared cultural spaces. We're getting fewer and fewer of that. And I think somehow we've got to think about how do we create those platforms? Because I think there is power in the next morning coffee conversation. Did you watch that? Did you see this? What did you think? I think there was that power which I think we have lost. And I think how do we get that rebalance back? I think is an interesting question, I feel, for the general.
Yes, and thank you for talking about test and learn and experimentation. I think it is the single most important thing, and also gives us a proof of concept without, just saying, okay, I'm going to throw a dart, let's see if it's going to hit or not. So test and learn is an extremely powerful way of saying yay or nay. But let's do some crystal gazing. And I think we've been talking about this a lot. And Hari, I'm going to put you on the spot right now to say, what do you think and are going to be some of the key trends, or what is going to change and change significantly in the next 3 to 5 years?
I've also been kind of obsessing with that question because a lot has changed in the last 2 to 3 years, and to the point, in fact, Archana, congratulations on the Cannes for the 83 World Cup thing, and what Kittu talked about, all these testing and learning budgets to do new things. And it's also connected to your new shiny toy thing. So when you talk about something like generative AI and how brands can use it, right? I know Kittu does a lot of experimentation himself with generative AI. I snoop on his social media and he puts up portraits, imaginative portraits of himself, which is quite fun actually. Now, there is one school of thought that says that if you do too much of this generative AI thing without much imagination, everything starts looking the same. As most of you in this room must have seen a lot of stuff on social media. Every image of an AI-generated scene looks the same. And it's almost like, 10 years ago when stock photos became a big thing and one brand looked like the other. So, crystal gazing there, what will happen is brands will experiment and they'll say, hey, this doesn't work for us anymore. Because a lot of brands, people expect some really brilliant, unique storytelling. And when you use cookie cutter tools like generative AI, then you kind of risk that, risk of losing that. Having said that, if you have a team and if you have people within your ecosystem who can put it to great use, for instance, I just saw a work for Zomato. I don't know if you guys have seen that, about how these Zomato riders are being put in beautiful different scenes, and it doesn't look like AI generated images. They look like they're very photoreal and very, very emotionally appealing. So you need the right people also for that. So what will happen is there will be more adoption of generative AI. There will be more people who will get skilled at it, and they'll be chaffing off the bad ones and the mediocre ones. And therefore, in the long run, while technology is there, craft will still be important. You will still have the Piyush Pandays and Prashun Joshis of that world, right? Who will still command a larger role in putting these tools to use. So these people aren't going to die. The other thing is, this is to do with Kittu's point about trust deficit society, which India is. Also brands, a lot of people will expect brands to do a lot more if they have to keep up the trust thing, because the more they use elements like generative AI or anything that is quick and off the shelf available, they'll stop kind of trusting and the pattern of expectations that the brand has created. So this is what I think is eventually going to happen.
Thank you. Kittu, you had a very interesting take on content and generative AI. Care to talk about it a little?
Well, there are lots of potential spaces, but the two which really interest me, one I think is personalization. Yes. I think pretty soon it might be possible to really craft exactly the right message for a Mr. Sharma at a particular point in time. And I think the cost of generating that and reaching that will plummet, right? So I think, and what opportunities does that throw? I think is quite, it by the way, will be intrusive and it'll be very scary as a recipient of those messages. But that I think is something that you can foresee quite interestingly. The other thing which I think is the other interesting, which is now from the brand perspective, is I think brands need to think of letting go of control, because I think today a creator will be able to, or tomorrow a creator will be able to create professional level content which features your brand. Today's TikTok videos looks a bit bad, tomorrow it won't. Tomorrow it'll be professional. So I think the question that will happen for brands is, we've always talked about co-creation with the consumer. You will have that opportunity. But how do you still keep control and how do you let go? And being able to navigate that, I think would be a supremely interesting challenge. So these two facts, which is personalization at scale and managing a brand, is it any longer a walled garden or is it an open space?
For everyone.
Good, interesting thoughts. I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah. Archana, care to add to it?
I think voice tech, I know everyone will say there's a lot of voice tech already, but I think given the vastness, the way India is, the amount of dialects that there are, I think if voice tech gets enabled for every dialect that is available, then, you talked about commerce. I think the explosion on commerce can be humongous. Personalization was the other point. I think also adoption of privacy. I think there is a set of audiences here who think of privacy, but a lot of consumers, a lot of tier 2, tier 3 people don't care about as of now. Government's obviously putting in a lot of controls and getting out the protection bill and things like that. But that is something which in future is going to be a big challenge for brands as consumers ensure that they're more careful with the way they share their data. I mean, I remember Meta was launching this thing of where you could change the controls of your privacy settings. And as brand marketers, we were all very worried saying now we will not be able to target our consumers and things like that. And I don't know how very few people actually went and changed privacy settings. So that's why I say that while there's a lot of talk about privacy, but not enough people worried about it as of now. But that's in future, that will become a big thing.
Absolutely. So Aditi, have all your points been covered already, or would you like to add?
So yeah, I think most of the points covered. I just want to build a bit on what Archana said last in terms of, today consumers are not bothered, and that's probably correct. Partly because they don't know, and partly because they think it perhaps doesn't matter. Yeah. But I think that's changing another aspect of how consumers engage with brands. And, I just want to add this layer of how we have seen the success of D2C. The reason people are able to adopt newer brands today is because they are just available to you, and you don't have anything which holds you to the previous brand, which is the brand story, the personalization, what Kito was talking about. And I think that is going to be the cusp which brands will need to figure out, that how do I have adequate enough information about the consumer to be a part of their world, not be a peeper or a stalker who's just trying to reach them. How do I get invited into their world? Because I'm doing something for them. I'm solving their need. I'm enabling something in their lives. And that balance is, I think, the key area which brands will need to focus on. Will come from managing, harnessing data. There's been huge amounts of talk on cookie-less and PII and all, so I don't want to go there. But really, what is the way that you can harness data in a way which remains ethical, not just today, but also for the future?
And what you just said, and there's such a big difference in not switching off your privacy settings versus being invited to their world. And I think that is probably serious evolution, to say that I don't know any better, so I don't know how this is going to impact me. I mean, not being aware of data sharing, versus saying, I know exactly what it means, and yet I invite you into my world because this is a safe space and I know that this is not going to be misused. And that's a great segue into the last part of what we wanted to talk about. And I think we've spoken about, the pace of change has been so phenomenal that learning is on the go. And with everything that you're, if you're just running and you're changing the wheels as you're running or as you're racing, the other bit about it is you don't know the risks that you're putting yourself to. And I think when I was speaking to all the panelists individually as well as, together, I think that came out as a very big thing to watch out for. So I think every one of you had a different take on it. And I'm happy to start with you, Kitu, and you were talking a lot about regulations around content and advocacy, and I think right now also you touched on it. So do you want to talk about that a little?
It's just as I said, I mean, because of the speed of change, because we don't know the direction of the change, also the reality that we face is, we have fragmented ourselves. Each one of us has become a subject matter experts. Very few people are looking at the whole stuff. I think there's real danger that things will get broken and we won't even know it for a fairly long time. I'm always a big believer in self-regulation. And I think we need, and you know, that there have been instances like what the industry did, let's say for influencer marketing, was a good, but I really do think there's got to be a lot more conversations about how do we deal with this.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, I mean, you know, the Coven database got leaked, single biggest leak. I don't think there's an outrage because most people either don't know, and lots of them who know perhaps don't care because they don't understand the implications, right? So my point is that I do think that as industry folks, we need to push the argument towards self-regulation far more. Otherwise, the regulation will be imposed on us, and that's not the best
Absolutely.
place.
And I think you touched on a very important consumer dimension. Ashna, with you, I want to talk a little bit about brand safety. And I think, you know, there was a point that Kitu, you made about saying, you know, when every user becomes a creator, what happens to brand safety? Well, there are many other dimensions to it, but right now we're just talking about things to watch out. That's one dimension. The other one is the space of AI, right? And all the risks associated with it. Talk to us from a brand angle on what to watch out for.
So obviously there are challenges because it's such a vast environment. Anything can go wrong, as Kitu was saying. I think brands have to put in a lot more in terms of creating what you do on the digital space, right? We have brand guidelines, I think a lot more for the offline space, what you do for the online. I think that's something which needs to get created. Then maybe getting somebody to look at your reputation management, online reputation management, brands having some external sources to look at it, because as a brand, you could have some blind spots. And how do you, and that's the reason some external influences of looking at what are you doing online and are there any challenges which you need to correct, right? So those, I think that's something and which I can think of right now, but going forward, you never know what gets thrown up to you and what you have to figure out in a real hurry.
Aditi, you already touched upon data and, you know, FPD. Anything more that you want to add to that? Or I think that's what we started with. So, but if you want to build on anything.
No, so I think a good rounding perhaps is, you know, a point that Kitu touched upon is, you know, people are still seeking experiences and this whole merging of offline and online experiences, you know. So let's say there is a cricket match, there is a great concert, there is a wonderful movie. I think that is the space that perhaps we may need to evaluate in the future, that how do these two worlds perhaps come together in a safe and easily accessible way. So is there a way for us to create a shared experience which is both offline and online and safe for a brand? I think maybe that's a space to think about.
Thank you. Hari, anything that you want to add?
Yeah, I think on the issue of things like brand safety, because we recently encountered, we are experimenting with things like gaming and meme marketing, which are two big areas. And some of our clients are coming back and saying, hey, you know, these are not brand safe because gaming has a lot of aggression, and especially live streaming and all has a lot of risk. Because if somebody uses profanity, suddenly the brand is there. So it's great fun actually for some of us, but and also memes. But there are, what we've also discovered in our journey, that there are clients with appetite. A lot of startup brands who say, okay, let's just do it and then go through the pain and see. So test and learn really happens in corridors where people are younger and you know, probably somebody will say immature, but I would say a lot more risk-taking. And of course, there are seasoned brands with great compliances who will never get into it. But it all ultimately depends on, we've seen brands with extremely risk-taking brand managers and marketing managers who've gone ahead and done very maverick things. And I think in this space, you'll also see a lot like that because it's just too tempting not to do something and be part of youth culture. But yeah, it's all about evaluating that risk and saying, okay, I'm ready to pay the price for that. So that's what it is. And it's like you said, as you're rounding up, we are all looking at a very exciting world ahead of us. It's never been so exciting. And the last time when things were so exciting was, I think, about 25, 30 years back when we saw shiny new TV commercials on satellite TV. I think it's a similar kind of feeling that we are getting now.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you for helping me sum up. And as we reach the end of this session, and I really want to thank my panelists here. So thank you, Kittu, Archana, Hari, and Aditi. It's really been great knowing you over the course of this conversation. And I think the parting message for us is just simply to say that, technology is here to stay. The pace of change is going to get, if anything, it's going to get even more charged as we go forward. However, it's really important to evaluate, be very, not be resistant to it, but also look at it because consumers are going to be there regardless. It's really important for us to make sure that we make those decisions in a calculated, thought-through manner and just make sure that not only brand safety, but the environment that we are actually present in is something we're watching out for. On that note, thanks so much. You've been a great audience. Thanks.
Thank you. I would request our panelists to please stay on the stage. We have a small token of appreciation for all of you. I would now request Mona Jain, Chief Revenue Officer, Z Media Corporation Limited, and Soumya Acharya, Lead Strategy and Agency Relationships, to please come up on the stage and present the memento for our panelists. Can we also have a round of applause for our panelists? They held a very in-depth session on changing consumerism in today's time. A round of applause for our panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Can we have a round of applause for our panelists who had an in-depth session on changing consumerism in today's time? Thank you so much for joining us today. I would now request Ms. Mona Jain, Chief Revenue Officer, Z Media Corporation Limited, to wrap up today's event with Afterword.
So thank you so much, everyone, for participating in Z Media's inaugural event, the Digital India 2023. We plan to do this event every year, the same time, and probably make it bigger than what it was this year. So thank you, everyone, again, for creating great conversations today. I think we all agree that we really had some very interesting conversations. We all kind of learned from it. They were very, very insightful. We've talked about challenges that India is facing in the digital era and how we can step into the future sustainably and inclusively all together. So all these are important conversations to have, especially at a time when India is taking lead on the global front. So thank you again. Thank you, Dinesh, our tech editor, for curating the event so wonderfully. Thank you all the panelists for your participation and taking time out to share your valuable views on digital transformation, which is taking many shapes and many formats. And thank you to my friends and to my partners and to my mentors from the industry for agreeing to be in the panel today. It's always great to hear your perspectives and the changing consumer touch points and how the ecosystem is adapting to it. And a very, very special thanks to Rajiv Chandrasekharji, Minister of State for Electronics and Information Technology for India, for gracing this occasion and more importantly for steering India in this era with his huge knowledge experience. And last but not the least, a big, big thank you to the entire leadership of Z Media. Everybody is here supporting us in this particular event. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Loya. Thank you, Abhay Ujha. Thank you, Radiji. Thank you, Direshji. Thank you, Madhu. Thank you, Pooja. Thank you so much for being here, along with us supporting the entire team in this event. And then I will not forget kind of really thanking the entire execution team who's really kind of worked very, very, very painstakingly to put this event together. There was a very active, very exciting console there. We had to keep kind of asking to lower the volume, but thank you so much, all of you. I know how much time everybody kind of spent putting this together. And I will not forget my sales team, the Rockstar team. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you so much. And now I guess we all can go ahead for our dinners and cocktail.
And with that, we've reached towards the end of today's event. I would like to thank all of you for taking our time and attending today's event, especially those who participated wholeheartedly. You can join us now for dinner outside. Thank you so much.